Welcome back everyone. Today we're kicking off an exciting new series titled What If Goku Remembered the Saiyans? This adventure promises to be an epic saga, potentially spanning 20 or more episodes, so get ready for an exhilarating ride. Let's aim for 350 likes on this episode. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the Time Chamber series. Crafting those episodes takes time to ensure they're packed with interesting ideas. Now, let's dive into our new story. Bardock looked down at his sleeping son, Kakarot, lying peacefully before him. The betrayal by Dodoria had left him seething, and he knew that Frieza would soon move to wipe out the Saiyans. The tyrant's power was overwhelming, but Bardock couldn't just sit back and do nothing. He had to act, even if it seemed hopeless. "Where's Kakarot being sent to?" Bardock asked the attendant, lifting the infant from his crib, ready to start his son's journey. "Some planet called Earth," the Saiyan attendant replied. "It's a planet of weaklings. Even an infant Saiyan won't have trouble taking it over. I haven't put him through the programming yet, but that's next." "Do me a favor," Bardock said, handing the attendant a box. "Forget the programming, just put this in the pod with him." "What's this?" the attendant asked, eyeing the box curiously. "Some items he might find useful on his mission," Bardock explained. "There's a scouter, some training materials, and a message explaining what he needs to do." "Isn't that what the programming is for?" the attendant questioned. "Yes," Bardock admitted, "but the programming turns them into mindless drones. I want my son to be a warrior, not a drone." "Whatever you say, Bardock," the attendant shrugged, placing the box and the infant into the pod. "Goodbye, my son," Bardock whispered as the pod shot off toward Earth, hoping his boy would have a better future. Grandpa Gohan looked up and saw what he thought was a meteor streaking across the sky. As it crashed nearby, he approached the crater only to find a space pod instead of a meteor. Inside the pod was a naked baby with a brown tail. "Well, this is unusual," he murmured, picking up the baby, who promptly punched him in the face. "You've got quite the arm, little guy." Grandpa Gohan chuckled warmly. He then noticed a box inside the pod. "What have we here?" he wondered, picking it up and carrying both the baby and the box back to his house. Once in the privacy of his home, Grandpa Gohan opened the box. The first thing he pulled out was a suit of green-plated armor with a black undersuit and a green scouter. "You're a bit young for armor, aren't you, little fella?" he said to the baby with a smile. The next item he retrieved was a small cube. Pressing a button on it, a hologram of a man appeared. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a man in armor much like that in the box. He wore a scouter over his right eye and bore numerous scars on his face, a testament to the many battles he had fought. Grandpa Gohan couldn't help but think this must be the child's father. A few seconds later, the hologram began to speak. "This message is for my son, Kakarot, when he's old enough to see it," the hologram of Bardock said. "If you're watching this, it means I was unable to stop Frieza and you are likely the last Saiyan alive. You were sent to this planet to eradicate all life so it could be sold to the highest bidder. We Saiyans have served as planet brokers and slaves under Frieza for years. We are a warrior race, growing stronger after every battle. That's why Frieza decided to destroy us. But you, my son, will someday be strong enough to defeat him." Grandpa Gohan listened, eyes widening as Bardock continued. "My mission for you, Kakarot, is not to destroy life on this planet, but to protect it as you train to become strong enough to avenge our people. Seek out strong individuals on Earth. Often, you can learn much from those who seem weak. Have pride in being a Saiyan, but don't let it blind you like it has some of our race. Enclosed here is armor and a scouter for when you're old enough, as well as information about the Saiyan race. Never forget where you came from, my son. Someday, I hope you'll show Frieza what a Saiyan is truly made of." 5 years later, Grandpa Gohan ducked as the young boy in front of him threw another punch at his head. "Not quite strong enough to hit me yet, Kakarot," he teased, sending a punch back at the boy. Kakarot dodged deftly and countered with a roundhouse kick. Grandpa Gohan caught the boy's leg, using his momentum to send him flying into the bushes. Kakarot stood up, dusting off his white karate uniform. "No fair," he grumbled. "It seems like no matter what I try, I can never hit you." "You've only been training with me for a few months now," Grandpa Gohan reminded him. "You'll improve with time. I've been training my whole life. You can't expect results overnight." "Mr. Gohan," Kakarot started hesitantly, "is everyone as strong as you?" "No," Grandpa Gohan replied. "Most people aren't even as strong as you are now. I've studied martial arts my entire life to gain my strength. Don't be discouraged that you're not winning. It takes time to become the best, but eventually, I know you will surpass me." "How do you know that?" the skeptical child asked. Grandpa Gohan sighed, realizing it was time to reveal the truth. "I guess it's time I told you. As you know, I'm not your father. The truth is, I found you as a baby in a spaceship and raised you as my own. You are a member of a proud warrior race called Saiyans. Is that why I have a tail and you don't? Kakarot asked, waving the furry brown appendage behind him. Yes, Grandpa Gohan replied. That is also why you're not allowed out during a full moon. Saiyans have the ability to transform into a giant ape under the full moon. This transformation makes you 10 times stronger, but it's difficult to control. Last time you transformed, I barely managed to knock you out before you caused serious damage. Kakarot looked taken aback. This was a lot for a boy to take in at once. Grandpa Gohan knew it was overwhelming, but he felt that Kakarot had a destiny to be a great hero someday and needed to know about his heritage. Come inside. Your father left a message for you as well as details about your people and what happened to them. It's time you knew the truth. 7 years later, Kakarot threw another punch at an imaginary opponent as he continued his workout. He wore Saiyan-style armor with a black undersuit and green plating. His brown tail was wrapped neatly around his waist. Dinner's ready, Grandpa Gohan called from the house. Before he could finish, Kakarot had already sped through the door and was inhaling the food at an alarming pace. In seconds, the food was gone, and Kakarot looked up at the old man. Will you spar with me this evening? He asked eagerly. I suppose I could make time for that, Grandpa Gohan replied with a smile. Promise not to hold back this time, Kakarot asked, his eyes shining with determination. You know I could never go all out on you, Grandpa Gohan replied. I could seriously hurt you. But how am I supposed to get strong if you hold back all the time? Kakarot countered, frustration evident in his voice. There's more to fighting than being strong, Grandpa Gohan reminded him. First, you have to have good technique. If you're a sloppy fighter, it doesn't matter how strong you are. But I can handle it, Kakarot insisted. Grandpa Gohan had to admit the boy was strong, probably twice as strong as the average human, and at only 12 years old. You have your scouter, Grandpa Gohan reminded him. Does it say you're strong enough to fight me at full power? Kakarot hit a button on the side of the scouter and watched as the reading appeared on the device. 80, he said, reading Grandpa Gohan's power level. Now what's your power level at? Grandpa Gohan asked. 12, Kakarot answered without even consulting the scouter. He knew about how strong he was at all times, a side effect of constantly measuring his power level. That's why I can't go all out on you without holding back, Grandpa Gohan explained. You wouldn't stand a chance, and it wouldn't be fair. You wouldn't gain much from being knocked unconscious. Kakarot scowled, but he knew it was true. I could transform, he said, brightening up. You know that's not a solution, Grandpa Gohan said, frowning. You don't have the control to fight in that form, and what you gain in power is lost in control. Kakarot sighed deeply. He knew Grandpa Gohan was right, but it was frustrating being young and impatient. He couldn't wait to avenge his people, but he also knew he needed to learn and grow stronger before he could face a monster like Frieza. Bardock's message had mentioned his father's last known power level, 10,000. Even with such power, Bardock had feared Frieza could easily wipe out their entire race. Kakarot understood he had to be much stronger than he was now and stronger than Grandpa Gohan if he ever hoped to succeed. Let's spar already, Kakarot said, rising from the table with renewed determination. Grandpa Gohan wiped his mouth, having finished his meal at a much slower pace. All right, he said, getting up. Minutes later, the two stood outside. Grandpa Gohan wore an old martial arts uniform, while Kakarot was clad in his armor. Kakarot lunged forward first, aiming a punch at Grandpa Gohan's face. The old man quickly backflipped out of the way, then came up with a kick aimed at Kakarot's head. Kakarot knew he couldn't dodge the kick at that speed, so he crossed his arms to absorb the blow. He then swept his leg, trying to take out Grandpa Gohan's planted foot. Grandpa Gohan leaped above the kick and sent a fist flying toward Kakarot's head. Kakarot redirected the attack with minimal effort. Very good, Grandpa Gohan said, impressed. You are learning well. But before he could say more, Kakarot's fist was already heading toward his face in a counterattack. Grandpa Gohan was amazed at how quickly the boy had improved over the years. Their sparring was interrupted by a noise in the distance. A blue car stopped, and a girl with blue hair and a pink dress that said Bulma got out. If my tracker is right, the Dragon Ball should be around here, she said to herself. What are you doing here? Kakarot asked, puzzled by her sudden appearance. I'm looking for a Dragon Ball, Bulma answered honestly. What's a Dragon Ball? Kakarot asked, curiosity piqued. They look like this, Bulma said, pulling one out of her bag. The ball she held was orange with 3 red stars in the middle. This is the 3-star ball. If you collect all 7, you can summon a dragon that will grant you any one wish. Have you seen any others around? Grandpa Gohan looked at the ball with interest. I have one with 4 stars that I found a few years ago, he admitted. Can I have it? Bulma asked eagerly. I'm Bulma, by the way. What do you want to wish for? Grandpa Gohan asked, curious about her intentions. I want to wish for the perfect boyfriend, Bulma replied, smiling brightly. Sounds a bit selfish but harmless, Grandpa Gohan thought. All right, I'll give it to you. Bulma's eyes sparkled with excitement. Thank you. By the way, what are you two doing? Sparring, Kakarot said simply. You're a fighter? Bulma exclaimed. That's so cool. You must be strong. Would two strong guys like you come help me find the remaining Dragon Balls? Why would I want to do that? Kakarot asked, puzzled. What else do you have to do? Bulma countered, her hands on her hips. Train, Kakarot replied, turning back to Grandpa Gohan. Now don't be rude, Grandpa Gohan said gently. This young lady out there by herself could end up in a world of trouble. You should go with her and make sure no harm comes to her. But Grandpa, Kakarot started, his voice tinged with frustration. I have training to do. Kakarot, Grandpa Gohan said firmly. What good is strength if you don't use it to help those who are weaker than yourself? Besides, the experience will be good for you. You can't spend the rest of your life in the woods training with me. Let's get started, Bulma said, getting back into the car and motioning for Kakarot to join her. With that, they drove off into the distance, looking for the next Dragon Ball and starting the adventure of a lifetime. After some time on the road, Kakarot looked puzzled as Bulma pulled the car over. Why are we stopping? He asked. I need to make a pit stop if you must know, Bulma shouted, her face turning red. All right, Kakarot said calmly. You didn't have to get that worked up. If you've got to pee, you've got to pee. I could use a stretch anyway. Traveling in this machine is kinda cramped. With that, the young Sen opened the door, got out, and started doing some simple stretches while Bulma went to the bushes to relieve herself. Kakarot, Bulma suddenly screamed. Geez, she screams a lot, Kakarot thought, covering his sensitive Sen ears. What is it? He called back. Receiving no immediate response, Kakarot wandered into the bushes where Bulma had gone. To his shock, he found her in the grip of a giant blue pterodactyl. Let her go, Kakarot said calmly, stepping forward. And why would I want to do that? The pterodactyl asked, its eyes gleaming with menace. Oh, I don't know, Kakarot replied, his voice steady. Maybe because you want to live. Funny kid. The pet pterodactyl started, but it was interrupted as Kakarot delivered a swift kick to its forehead. The young Sen didn't stop there. He pummeled the beast with several punches and kicks before grabbing its horn and snapping its neck with a powerful twist. Looks like we'll stop for dinner too, Kakarot said, dragging the pterodactyl into a clearing. You mean you're going to eat that thing? Bulma asked, her face pale with disbelief. Yes, it's food, Kakarot replied simply, and I am hungry. Do you want me to save you some? No, that's all right, Bulma said quickly. I have some food in a capsule, but I suppose we could stop for the night. Fine by me, Kakarot said, as he started to build a small fire and cook the pterodactyl. Bulma awoke the next morning and looked out the window to see Kakarot already up, doing backflips and punching and kicking the air. Wow, that kid really is amazing, she thought as she walked into the bathroom to start doing her hair. Outside, Kakarot continued his exercise, practicing the turtle combat style that Grandpa Gohan had taught him, and integrating some of the Saiyan techniques from the training materials in his space pod. Over the years, he had mastered most of the basic moves of the Saiyan fighting style and had become fluent in the Saiyan language. Several minutes later, the young Sen decided to halt his exercises to concentrate on something more challenging. He looked over the material his father had left for him, particularly the section about harnessing his energy. He'd been practicing this for years, even though Grandpa Gohan had advised him to crawl before he could walk. Kakarot was determined. He knew that most Saiyan warriors could harness their energy for various attacks. Grandpa Gohan had mentioned energy techniques but refused to teach him any until he was ready. Kakarot knew he needed to master this skill to become a formidable warrior. So far, he'd come close to harnessing his energy but hadn't yet succeeded. Closing his eyes, he scrunched his face in concentration, focusing on clearing his mind to bring out his energy. Several minutes later, a small white light appeared in his hands, and he grinned as he continued to hold the energy. That's a neat trick, a voice said from behind him, causing Kakarot to lose his concentration and drop his hold on the energy. And you are? Kakarot asked, turning around and taking a fighting stance, only to find himself facing a turtle. I'm a lost turtle, the turtle replied. I go by Turtle. I got into a foot race with a hare and managed to lose my way. I could use a ride back to the sea. And I could use some peace and quiet to train, Kakarot said, turning his back. You're lucky I already ate breakfast, or you'd be breakfast. I can help you train, Turtle said, changing his strategy. Sympathy wasn't getting him anywhere, so he decided to change tactics. Kakarot hit a button on his scouter, and the device beeped. Jawan Lu Wawan, he laughed, reading the scouter. You're so pathetically weak, how could you help me train? Well, I may not be that strong, Turtle said, but I do weigh quite a bit. You could get a good workout if you carried me to the sea, and besides, surely my master would reward you if you returned me to him. All right, Kakarot said, intrigued by the idea of getting stronger. I'll go get Bulma. Kakarot walked into the capsule house that Bulma insisted on sleeping in, finding her still doing her hair. We're leaving, but I'm not ready yet, she replied. Looking good when you find the Dragon Balls is just as important as finding the Dragon Balls. You're joking, Kakarot said. You've been doing your hair for the last 2 hours. If it's not good by now, it never will be. Alright then, fine, Bulma said, capitulating as she packed up the house capsule and got into her capsule car. Aren't you getting in? I think I'll run, Kakarot replied. And we're taking a detour to the sea. What? We don't have time for that, Bulma protested. Sure we do, Kakarot said, grabbing the Dragon Ball radar. There's a Dragon Ball toward where the sea is anyway, and I'd rather run than spend all day riding in that stupid car of yours. Besides, I'm pretty fast. Oh, alright, Bulma conceded, realizing she might need the young Sen's help if she encountered any dangers in the wild. Stop! A voice commanded as Kakarot carried Turtle on his back and Bulma drove behind him. Kakarot turned to see a giant orange bear with a mohawk, dressed in strange samurai armor and wielding a sword. Give me the Turtle, and I'll let you live, the bear growled. Kakarot hit the button on his scouter. 6, he laughed. What makes you think I need to listen to someone as weak as you? Weak? The giant replied. You're one to talk, little one. You'll pay for that, Kakarot said, taking a fighting stance. I'm sure, the giant said, drawing his sword and swinging it at Kakarot. The young Saiyan leaned his head slightly to the right, causing the blade to miss by mere inches. Enough of this game, Kakarot declared, launching off his right foot and landing a powerful fist in the giant's stomach, causing him to double over in pain. He followed up with a knee to the chin, toppling the beast and leaving him unconscious. Kakarot picked Turtle back up and continued toward the sea. Let's get moving, he said to Bulma. Sometime later, the three arrived at the ocean. Thank you so much, Turtle said. If you'll wait here, I'll go get my master, and he will surely reward you. Fine, Kakarot said, sitting cross-legged and focusing on bringing out his energy once again. What, you're just going to sit there? Bulma asked. I'm concentrating, if you haven't noticed, Kakarot replied with his eyes closed, forming energy in his hands much easier than before and holding it. Wow, Bulma said, amazed. How do you do that? It's energy manipulation, Kakarot replied. It's not too hard of a trick, he continued, lying slightly. In fact, it had taken him the last several years to master the technique. He'd been practicing it since he first read about it in the material his father left. Most Sens learn it when they are fairly young. I should have it mastered fairly soon, then I can work on making it useful. And how do you make balls of light in your hands useful? Bulma asked skeptically, wondering what a Sen was if they could make balls of light appear in their hands. Well, you can use it to attack your opponent in a fight, Kakarot explained. Or you can push it under you to fly. Fly? Bulma said, raising an eyebrow. That's impossible. No, it's not, Kakarot replied confidently. Most beings in the universe can do it, just not on this primitive planet. Oh really? Then you do it, Bulma challenged, laughing. Fine then, Kakarot said, letting go of the energy he'd formed. He began focusing on pushing his energy below him, hoping he'd be able to do it on the first try. Otherwise, he was going to look rather foolish. Fortunately for him, it worked, and the boy started floating above the ground, though with much effort, which showed on the Saiyan's face. After a few minutes, he floated back to the ground, sweat forming on his brow. You okay? Bulma asked, her voice tinged with concern. Of course I am, Kakarot said, not letting his pride admit that flying was much harder than it looked. That was a pretty good trick, an old man said, arriving on Turtle and stepping onto the shore. It was nothing, really, Kakarot said. Who are you, anyway? I am Master Roshi, the Turtle Hermit, the old man introduced himself. As far as I know, only Master Shen's students learn that, Roshi thought. How'd you learn that trick anyway? Let's just say I'm a quick learner, Kakarot replied with a smirk. No kidding, Roshi said, impressed. It took me nearly 70 years just to learn energy manipulation, and another 10 to do anything with it. Yes, Kakarot responded. Well, many people on this planet are weak. Weak? Roshi said, slightly offended. I happen to be one of the greatest martial arts masters of all time. Really? Kakarot said. Is that so? He hit the scouter. 126, he read but said nothing. He really is pretty strong, at least compared to those on this planet. He's even stronger than Grandpa Gohan. Well, Kakarot started. How about a spar for my reward then? I'll probably get beat pretty badly, he thought, but it'll make me stronger being a Saiyan and all. Wait, Bulma interjected, seeing the Dragon Ball hanging around Roshi's neck. Can I have that Dragon Ball? What? This old thing? Roshi said. Sure. He tossed the Dragon Ball to Bulma. Turning to Kakarot, he took a more serious tone. Sure, I'll give you a spar, kid. I'll even go easy on you. Don't hold back, Kakarot said. Grandpa Gohan always holds back on me too. I need a real challenge. You know Gohan? Roshi asked, surprised. Yes, Kakarot said. He practically raised me while I was too weak to take care of myself. So you're the same baby he found, Roshi said. How do you know that, old man? Kakarot said, taking a fighting stance. No one really knew about his heritage, and he didn't want it becoming common knowledge. Gohan told me. Of course, Roshi replied. I was his master, after all. We still keep in touch from time to time. Wait, what's a Saiyan? Bulma asked. She'd heard Kakarot mention them a few times and was curious. Kakarot paused. He figured he might as well tell her. Over the past few days, they'd actually become quick friends. Well, a Saiyan is a warrior race from the planet Vegeta. Are you one of these Saiyans? Bulma asked. Her curiosity piqued. Yes, Kakarot replied. Unfortunately, I'm the last of the Saiyans. An evil tyrant named Frieza destroyed my people when I was very young. My father sent me away as a baby and went to try to stop Frieza. Since I haven't heard from him, he didn't succeed. Oh, that's awful, Bulma said, engulfing Kakarot in a hug. You poor thing. Kakarot had to admit he liked the comfort Bulma brought. He wondered briefly what his father would think if he were here, seeing him show such weakness. He quickly pulled away and hid his emotions. Let's cut the small talk and get on with our spar, Kakarot said, turning to Roshi and taking a fighting stance. All right, Roshi said, taking his own stance. With that, Kakarot charged at the martial arts master, throwing kicks and punches with everything he had. The old man managed to block and dodge them all with ease. Roshi threw a punch at Kakarot almost faster than the boy could follow, and much faster than the boy could dodge. The blow connected with the Saiyan's face and sent him flying back to the ground. I think you've had enough, Roshi said. Kakarot got to his feet and wiped a trickle of blood from his mouth. It'll take more than that to beat me, he said as he once again charged at the old man, throwing kicks and punches wildly, thrilled that he was getting a challenge. Grandpa Gohan never would have hit him that hard, always worrying about hurting him. Once again, Roshi blocked and dodged all the blows with practiced ease. The turtle hermit hit Kakarot with an uppercut, sending the boy flying into the air. He quickly jumped up and brought a double-fisted hammer blow down on Kakarot's back, sending him into the ground hard. Kakarot got up off the ground, holding his now injured arm. I'm not done yet. Yes, you are, Roshi said. You don't stand a chance in this fight, but you do show potential. If you want, I'll take you on as a student and help you become a better fighter. You're on, Kakarot said, excited about the prospect of an even stronger teacher than his grandpa. I'll return to train with you as soon as we're done collecting the Dragon Balls. The next Dragon Ball should be right up here, Bulma said, looking at the radar. Probably in that village up ahead, Kakarot said. Let's check it out, Bulma suggested. A few minutes later, the two were walking through the village. Looks deserted, Bulma commented. Kakarot hit his scouter. There are several power levels in the houses, he said, but apparently, they're all hiding. That's strange, Bulma noted. Why would they all be hiding? I don't know, Kakarot said, but I'm going to find out. He walked up to the door of one of the houses and knocked. After a few seconds of no answer, he yelled, I know you're in there. Open up. When there was still no response, Kakarot sent his fist through the door and kicked it open. Suddenly, an axe came swinging down at Kakarot's head. In an instant, the Sen's hand shot up and caught the handle. What were you planning on doing with that? Kakarot growled between clenched teeth. I thought you were Oolong. The old man on the other end of the axe stammered. Who's Oolong? Bulma asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. He's the monster that keeps taking our daughters, the man explained, his voice trembling. He's horrible. He can take any form. He usually comes in the form of a giant of some kind. He comes and destroys part of our town, then takes our daughters. Now he has his sights on my daughter, so when I thought you were Oolong, I wanted to protect her. You're lucky you missed, or I might have had to hurt you, Kakarot said, releasing the axe. What brings you here anyway? The man asked, eager to change the subject. We're looking for a ball like this one, Bulma answered, pulling out one of the Dragon Balls. That's odd, the man said, examining the ball with stars in it. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen it, an old woman said, stepping forward and pulling out another Dragon Ball. Bulma's eyes lit up. Can we have it? It's been in my family for generations, the woman replied, clutching it protectively. What if we defeat Oolong and get your daughters back? Bulma suggested. Sure, if you manage that, you can have it, the woman agreed. Okay, here's the plan, Bulma said, turning to Kakarot. We'll put you in a dress and let Oolong take you back to where he's hiding the girls. Then you can beat him, and we'll get the girls back. No, Kakarot said flatly. It's the only way, Bulma insisted. No, it's not, Kakarot said. How about I just beat him and make him tell us where the girls are? Fine, Bulma pouted, disappointed that her plan was rejected. A few hours later, the village was tense with anticipation. Where's my lovely bride? Oolong roared as he smashed his way into town. I'm your date today, Kakarot said, stepping out into the street to face the 20-foot-tall red giant with a pig's snout. You? Oolong replied. Sorry, kid. You're not my type. I'm not giving you a choice, Kakarot replied. I'm here to end your reign of terror. You beat me? Oolong laughed. You must be joking. You're nothing but a runt. Kakarot hit the button on his scouter and grinned. Only a power level of 4, he thought. This will be easier than I thought. Without hesitation, Kakarot leaped into the air and sent a kick at the giant's face. Oolong swung a fist at the tiny warrior but was too slow. Kakarot's foot landed right between his eyes, knocking him to the ground and out cold. An instant later, in a puff of smoke, the giant that was Oolong turned into a short, pudgy pig in army fatigues. Why did he shrink? Bulma asked from where she was watching. Oolong has the ability to transform, one of the villagers explained. This must be his true form. Kinda small, isn't he? Bulma said, laughing. Typical for such a weakling, Kakarot said, walking back into the hut. A few hours later, Oolong awoke, groggy and disoriented. Where am I? He asked, confused. And why am I tied up? Because you're weak, Kakarot said, answering both questions at once. Now, you're going to tell me where those girls are. Why would I do that? Oolong asked, his voice trembling. Because, I'm assuming you want to live, Kakarot replied with menace. While he had no intention of killing the pig, he could let him think he did. Oolong swallowed hard. Good point. But why are you helping these people? Don't get me wrong, but you don't seem like the hero type. There's a reward if you must know, Kakarot said, irritated. We're collecting some Dragon Balls, and they have one. Rather than having to kill them for it, I just had to beat you. Can I come with you? Oolong asked, hopeful. No, Kakarot said bluntly. Wait, Kakarot, Bulma interjected. He might be useful with his ability to change like that, and if he gets out of line, you can always knock him out. Fine, Kakarot said, walking away. Somehow, he still couldn't say no to the girl, and it was getting frustrating. Later that night, the 3 companions had stopped for the night and sat around a small campfire. We only need 2 more Dragon Balls, Bulma said excitedly. You have an amazing grasp of the obvious, Kakarot said, sitting off to the side with his eyes closed in a meditative position. The young Sen had a look of concentration on his face. What's he doing anyway? Oolong asked Bulma. Beats me, Bulma said. He's either sitting like that or working out since I met him. It seems like all he does when we're not busy. If you must know, I'm meditating, Kakarot said, his eyes still closed. What for? Oolong asked, confused. I need to learn to control my energy like a true Saiyan, Kakarot replied as he started to float a few inches off the ground. That's a neat trick, Oolong said, looking to Bulma. It's not a trick, Kakarot said. I'm holding myself up with my energy. I've been practicing it for the last few days. At this rate, I'll be flying within the next couple of days. Flying? Oolong asked, incredulous. That's impossible. Only for the weaklings on this planet, Kakarot said. I'm a Saiyan warrior, and all Saiyan warriors can fly. What's a Saiyan warrior? Oolong whispered to Bulma. I can't tell you, Bulma replied. It's up to him if he decides to trust you. He kinda has trust issues as it is. I don't want to make him mad at me by telling his secret. Kakarot just rolled his eyes and continued meditating. Did they really think he couldn't hear their conversation? The next day, Kakarot, Bulma, and Oolong continued their journey. They were in one of Bulma's boats, traveling down a river. We're really making good time using this river, Bulma commented. Where are we going, anyway? Oolong asked. Well, Bulma replied, checking her radar. The next Dragon Ball is just on the other side of the Diablo Desert. It shouldn't be too much farther. The Diablo Desert, Oolong said, his eyes widening. But Yamcha lives there. Who's Yamcha? Bulma asked, curious. He rules the Diablo Desert, Oolong explained. He's a master of martial arts. It's said he'll rob and kill anyone who comes into his territory. His Wolf Fang Fist technique is said to be invincible. Sounds like a decent challenge. Kakarot spoke for the first time in hours. The young San had been meditating most of the trip but was clearly aware of his surroundings. I don't think you understand, Oolong said nervously. He's a monster. I'm getting out of here. In an instant, the pig transformed into a fish and made to jump overboard. Before he hit the water, he was caught by Kakarot's hand. You're not going anywhere, but Yamcha will kill us, Oolong pleaded. Don't worry, Oolong, Bulma reassured him. Kakarot is really strong. He can protect us. He did knock you out without even trying, after all. Just how strong are you, kid? Oolong asked, still skeptical. My power level is 16, Kakarot replied. What's that mean? Bulma asked, puzzled. Kakarot hit his scouter. Well, you're only at 2, and the pig is only at 4. Does that clarify anything? I think I've got an idea now, Bulma said. Suddenly, the motor on the boat quit. We're out of gas, Bulma said, worried. Oolong, can you turn into some gas to get us to shore? Can't. I'd get used up, Oolong said. I've got it, Kakarot said, jumping into the water. A few seconds later, the boat began to move forward once again as the young Saiyan swam behind it, pushing it down the river. Just head to the shore, Bulma directed. Minutes later, the three got out of the boat on dry land. Oh no, Bulma said, giving herself a pat down. My Dinocaps. Guess we'll walk, Kakarot said. That's easy for you to say, Bulma yelled, hysterical. You're used to the outdoors. What other choice do we have? Kakarot said. Besides, it might be good for you. The sun shone down brightly in the depths of the desert as Kakarot, Bulma, and Oolong walked endlessly. I can't go on, Bulma panted. I'm not meant to walk in the desert. Kakarot just rolled his eyes. Let's take a break then. He didn't really care about how good of time they made through the desert. He'd use the time when Bulma needed to rest to train anyway. Bulma walked over to the shade of a rock and laid down to sleep. I'm going to go find some food, Kakarot said. Before he moved 2 steps though, he spotted a dust cloud in the distance. What's that? Oolong asked, quaking with fear. I'm not sure, Kakarot replied. In minutes, the figure that caused the dust cloud developed into a man on a hover scooter. The figure drew closer before finally coming to a stop in front of Kakarot and Oolong. The man stepped down off the scooter. He was dressed in green pants and an orange shirt and carried a sword sheathed at his side. Atop his shoulder sat a small, cat-like creature. Give me your money and any Dinocaps, and I'll let you live, the man demanded. Who are you to order me around, weakling? Kakarot replied defiantly. I am Yamcha, ruler of this entire area. Yamcha replied. Hey, the small cat said, interrupting. That's Oolong. He was in my shape-shifting class. He was always a big bully. Well, Puar, Yamcha said with a grin. It appears the tables have turned. I wouldn't say that, Oolong said with a smug look. My boy Kakarot here will take out both of you. Just like always, Puar said, eyeing Oolong with disdain. Having someone else fight for him. This is your last chance, Yamcha warned, his eyes narrowing. Give me your money, and you won't get hurt. No, Kakarot said simply, his voice steady. Your funeral? Yamcha sneered. I doubt that, Kakarot replied, hitting his scouter. You only have a power level of 12, the Sen said with a laugh. Weakling. I'll show you weak, Yamcha shouted, charging at the young Sen. In an instant, he had his sword out, swinging the blade at Kakarot. Kakarot leapt into the air, dodging the blow effortlessly. An instant later, he landed on the ground and rebounded, shooting back at the desert bandit and planting a foot in his back. Yamcha went flying forward across the ground but quickly rebounded himself, charging back at Kakarot. The bandit began throwing kicks and punches at the young Sen as fast as he could, but Kakarot managed to dodge or block every one of them. Minutes later, the two separated. Now you're going to get it, Yamcha panted. I'll show you my Wolf Fang Fist. Bring it on, Kakarot said, taking a defensive stance. Wolf Fang Fist, Yamcha yelled, moving his hands in a complex motion. The tall warrior began to take the form of a wolf as he charged at Kakarot, throwing punches at lightning speed. Suddenly, he was stopped as Kakarot's fist landed in his stomach with tremendous force. The taller warrior bent down, clutching his stomach, and finally fell to the ground. Some attack, Kakarot said, laughing. It might have worked if you were stronger. You'll pay for this, Yamcha said, struggling to his feet. I doubt that, Kakarot replied coolly. What's going on? Bulma asked, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. A girl, Yamcha yelled, jumping back on his scooter and speeding away. Guess you showed him, Oolong said to Kakarot. And I was just getting warmed up, Kakarot said, somewhat disappointed. Kakarot, Bulma, and Oolong sat in Oolong's RV, which the pig had just remembered he had. So what do these Dragon Balls do anyway? Oolong asked, curious. Well, if you gather them all up, you get a single wish from the Eternal Dragon, Bulma explained. What are we going to wish for? Oolong asked. You mean, what am I going to wish for? Bulma corrected him. I'm going to wish for the perfect boyfriend. What a wasted wish, Kakarot said from the corner. Well, what do you suggest? Bulma retorted. A true warrior lives by his strength, Kakarot replied. And strength is what matters. Everything else is second. So you want to wish to be stronger? Oolong asked, trying to follow Kakarot's logic. Are you kidding? Kakarot said, shaking his head. Where's the honor in that? Strength gained through a wish isn't really yours. So what would you wish for? Bulma asked, genuinely curious now. I don't really need a wish, Kakarot said. I just decided to come along for the ride, hoping to find someone strong to fight. How's that going for you? Oolong asked. I have found one old master who is pretty strong, Kakarot replied. I'm going to go train with him when this is over. But I have to finish this first. It's not like you two would stand a chance on your own anyway. How nice of you, Oolong replied sarcastically. The truth hurts, Kakarot said, smirking. Yamcha's ears perked up as he overheard the conversation inside the house. He turned to his small, floating blue companion, Puar, with a sly grin. Did you hear that? He whispered. If we could get those Dragon Balls, we could wish for anything. Puar, always curious, tilted his head. What would you wish for, Yamcha? With a wistful sigh, Yamcha replied, I'd wish to never be nervous around women again. Puar nodded in agreement but then asked, but how are we going to get the Dragon Balls? Yamcha scratched his head, thinking hard. We need to lure them out of here, he said confidently. Before Puar could respond, a voice interrupted them from behind. And what are you planning to do after that? Kakarot asked, his tone sharp. Do you really think I'm inattentive enough not to notice a couple of eavesdroppers like you? Yamcha quickly turned, taking a defensive stance. I'm impressed, boy, Yamcha said, trying to keep his cool. You're really on your guard, but you won't win this round. Kakarot smirked, crossing his arms. Don't make me laugh. I was barely warming up last time, and you were already getting your ass kicked. Yamcha clenched his fists, anger rising. We'll see about that, he snapped. I'm going all out this time. Wouldn't want it any other way, Kakarot replied, his eyes gleaming with excitement. With a swift push off his left foot, Yamcha charged at Kakarot, unleashing a flurry of kicks and punches. But Kakarot was ready, blocking every attack with ease, his movements almost effortless. Is that all you've got? Kakarot taunted. I thought you said you were going all out. This feels more like a warm-up. Yamcha's face turned red with fury. How dare this boy mock him? He attacked with renewed vigor, his kicks and punches becoming even more frantic. Kakarot continued to block, but it was clear he was starting to take the fight more seriously. Finally, one of Yamcha's punches connected with Kakarot's face, sending him reeling back slightly. But Kakarot quickly recovered, his expression now serious. He decided it was time to go on the offensive. With a powerful punch aimed at Yamcha's face, Kakarot struck out. Yamcha managed to dodge by mere inches, but Kakarot followed up with a sweeping kick that took the bandit off his feet. Not wasting a second, Kakarot landed a solid punch to Yamcha's gut, doubling him over. An instant later, Kakarot's knee came up into Yamcha's face, sending him stumbling back. Yamcha, Puar yelled, his voice filled with worry. He had never seen his master lose to anyone, especially not this badly. The sight of Yamcha getting hit so hard was alarming. Kakarot paused for a moment, considering his next move. He had been working on a new technique and decided now was the perfect time to try it out. Concentrating hard, he gathered his energy, pulling it into his palm until a small ball of yellow light appeared. With a determined look, he hurled the energy ball at the downed bandit. However, the attack was slower than expected, and Yamcha easily rolled out of the way. The energy ball exploded harmlessly on the ground behind him. In an instant, Yamcha sprang to his feet, charging at Kakarot with renewed fury. His punches and kicks came with a ferocity Kakarot hadn't seen before. Kakarot managed to block most of the attacks, but a few got through, causing him some pain. He regretted using the energy attack. It hadn't done any damage and had drained him significantly. As Yamcha's fist flew towards his face, Kakarot leaned his head to the left, dodging by mere inches. He countered swiftly, aiming a punch at Yamcha's exposed stomach. The bandit raised his knee, taking the blow on his leg instead. They continued to trade blows, locked in a fierce stalemate. Kakarot flipped back, taking a moment to catch his breath and rethink his strategy. He lunged at Yamcha again, this time with even greater speed. He threw a left hook at Yamcha's face, but it was a feint. At the last second, Kakarot's knee came around to strike Yamcha's exposed side. The bandit moved to block but was too slow. Pain shot through Yamcha's body as Kakarot's knee connected. Seizing the opportunity, Kakarot pummeled the bandit mercilessly. Seconds later, Yamcha was on the ground, Kakarot standing over him. Yamcha looked up at Kakarot, his face and body covered in bruises from the intense fight. Kakarot gazed down at his defeated opponent. Part of him wanted to finish the fight and prove his dominance, but another part told him he had already won. He had nothing left to prove. Turning his back on Yamcha, Kakarot said, "Get out of my sight and don't let me catch you here again, or next time will be worse." "Wait," Yamcha called out, still desperate to get the Dragon Balls. He knew he couldn't win by force or stealth. "Maybe I could help you and your friends." Kakarot stopped, but didn't turn around. "And how do you propose to do that?" "I could help you train," Yamcha offered. "Maybe even show you a few techniques." Kakarot's interest was piqued. "Like what?" "I could show you my Wolf Fang fist," Yamcha said. "I've already seen that one," Kakarot replied, "and I wasn't all that impressed." "Well, I could at least give you someone to spar against along the way. Maybe even keep you on your toes," the bandit suggested. Kakarot considered this for a moment. "Fine," he said finally, "but any funny business and you'll regret it." With that, Kakarot, Bulma, Oolong, and now their two new companions, Yamcha and Puar, continued on their quest to find the Dragon Balls. Their journey led them towards the dreaded Fire Mountain, where the next Dragon Ball was believed to be hidden. "What's this Fire Mountain anyway?" Bulma asked, her curiosity piqued. "Well," Oolong began, The entire mountain is covered in flames. It's also home to the dreaded Ox King. Who's the Ox King? Kakarot asked, his interest now fully engaged. Is he very strong? He's a killer, Oolong replied, his voice trembling slightly. He eats humans for breakfast and is incredibly strong. Yamcha snorted dismissively. It's just a legend. Believe what you want, Oolong said, crossing his arms. But count me out. Don't be such a coward, Bulma chided. With both Kakarot and Yamcha, we should be able to handle anything. Yamcha blushed at the mention of his name by Bulma. Though he had managed to keep his composure better after their first encounter, he still turned red whenever she spoke to him. We should probably stop for the night, Oolong suggested. Our great warriors will need to be well rested if they face off against the Ox King, he added sarcastically. Chu and Mei watched as Emperor Pilaf paced back and forth in his throne room. Why aren't we going after the Dragon Balls? Chu asked Mei. Because, Emperor Pilaf interjected, we already have one of the Dragon Balls. It's much more efficient to let them gather the other 6 and then trap them when they come for the one we have. Genius, Emperor, Mei said, actually approving of her master's plan for a change. But why the change in tactics? This isn't like you. There is a formidable warrior collecting the balls, Pilaf explained. From my spy cams, he seems to always be on alert. I figured it would be easier to trap them on my home turf. An excellent idea, Master, Chu agreed. Kakarot stood several feet away from the camper, calming himself and concentrating. He stretched his hands out and shot a small energy blast at a nearby rock, disintegrating it instantly. He repeated this process, sending blast after blast at different rocks. After 10 blasts, he heard a voice behind him. Impressive, Yamcha said. I've only heard of great masters being able to manipulate energy like that. All Sen warriors learn to do this at a young age, Kakarot replied, his tone dismissive. It's child's play. It still seems difficult for you, Yamcha observed. You're panting. I'll manage, Kakarot retorted. I did manage to beat you, weakling. Weakling, huh? Yamcha said, pretending to be hurt. Care to have a spar to prove how much stronger you are? Sure, Kakarot said, a smirk forming on his lips. I may be tired from using so much energy, but maybe you're good enough to give me a workout. Then put up, Yamcha said, taking a fighting stance. In an instant, Yamcha charged at Kakarot, throwing a kick at his head. Kakarot raised an arm to block the blow but found it more difficult than expected. Yamcha didn't relent, sending a punch towards Kakarot's stomach. The young Saiyan moved to block but was a split second too late. Yamcha's fist landed squarely in Kakarot's stomach, doubling him over. In the next instant, Yamcha's other fist connected hard with Kakarot's face, sending him flying back into the bushes. Kakarot got up, holding his stomach, and grinned. This was going to be interesting, to say the least. The young Sen charged at the bandit and threw a punch at Yamcha's midsection. Yamcha blocked with his hand but wasn't quick enough to stop the kick Kakarot aimed at the back of his knee. Yamcha's leg buckled under him. Kakarot, not wasting a second, brought the same fist that had been blocked seconds before up into Yamcha's chin. Yamcha staggered back from the blow. Before he could recover, Kakarot punched him in the chest, sending Yamcha flying back into his own set of bushes. Yamcha got up, wiping a trickle of blood from his mouth, and grinned. This sparring session was turning out to be more exciting than he had anticipated. He had thought he'd have the upper hand after seeing Kakarot use so much energy, but it seemed they were evenly matched. Yamcha relished the challenge. It had been too long since he had found a worthy opponent, let alone one who could push him to his limits. In recent years, he had been content robbing the weak, but now he felt the thrill of a real fight again. His thoughts were interrupted by Kakarot's foot connecting with his face in a flying kick. The blow sent Yamcha sprawling, and in an instant, Kakarot was upon him, throwing kicks and punches like a whirlwind. Yamcha blocked most of the attacks, but some got through, and he retaliated with blows of his own. The two continued to spar intensely, trading punches and kicks until both were exhausted and covered in bruises. The next day, the group of travelers approached Fire Mountain. The heat is intense, Oolong commented as they neared the mountain, which was engulfed in flames. The Dragon Ball is definitely up there, Bulma said, looking at the bleeper. Probably in that castle up there. That's the Ox King's castle, Oolong said nervously. How are we going to get up there through the fire? Yamcha asked. There's no way through those flames. I'm going to look for a path, Kakarot said. Maybe the entire mountain isn't actually on fire. With that, he disappeared into the bushes to scout for a way through the flames. Who's there? A booming voice demanded behind them. Are you trying to steal my gold? The travelers turned to see a massive man, about 7 feet tall and covered in muscles. He wore a hat with horns and carried a giant axe. He was the Ox King. No, Bulma said quickly. We're just passing by. No way into that castle, Kakarot announced, emerging from the bushes. He turned to look at the Ox King. I take it you're the Ox King. I knew it. You're trying to steal my gold, the Ox King roared. He swung his axe at Kakarot, but the boy jumped out of the way before the weapon could hit him. We can take him together, Yamcha said, taking a fighting stance. Back off, Kakarot said, already in his own stance. True Saiyan warriors fight alone. He quickly hit his scouter. 50, he thought, reading the number. This could get tricky. The Ox King swung his massive axe at Kakarot again, and once more, Kakarot narrowly avoided it by jumping out of the way. He charged forward and landed a kick to the Ox King's stomach, but the giant didn't even flinch. You won't live long enough to steal my treasure, the Ox King ranted as he swung his axe at Kakarot once again. What are you talking about, you big oaf? Kakarot asked, dodging the axe yet again. I don't care about your stupid treasure. I'm just looking for a Dragon Ball, and I think it's in your castle. I'm sure we can offer some kind of payment if it's yours. Though Kakarot didn't like backing down from a fight, he knew this giant was stronger than him, at least for now. More importantly, he wasn't a thief. If the Dragon Ball was the Ox King's possession, it wasn't right to take it without offering some kind of payment. You mean you're not after my vast treasure? The Ox King asked, his tone shifting. No, Kakarot said firmly. We're just looking for a small ball with red stars in it. We think it's in your castle. Well, the Ox King said, there's no way into the castle until the fire is put out. I'll tell you what, if you can find a way to put the fire out, you can have your Dragon Ball. Sounds fair enough, Kakarot agreed. Any ideas on how to put out the fire? The Banshu fan is the only thing that can extinguish the flames, the Ox King explained. It belongs to the great master Roshi. I sent my daughter Chi-Chi to get it, but I fear she's been lost. I can find this Master Roshi, Kakarot said, tapping his scouter. Sure enough, the old man's power level showed up in the direction they had come from. Can I ask you one more favor? The Ox King said, his voice softening. Will you also find my daughter and bring her back safely? Sure, no problem, Bulma cut in. It'd be our pleasure. All right, Kakarot said, taking charge of the situation. I'll find Master Roshi and get the Banshu fan. Yamcha can go rescue Chi-Chi while I'm gone. What about the rest of us? Oolong asked nervously. You stay here until I return, Kakarot instructed. I'll be able to get there faster if I go alone. With that, Kakarot took off running in the direction they had come from. Does he have a jetcopter capsule somewhere? Oolong asked, puzzled. No, I think he's actually planning to make the trip on foot, Yamcha replied. I suppose I better go find this Chi-Chi. Surely she hasn't gotten too far, he added, taking off on foot as well. This could be a long wait, Oolong muttered to himself, watching them disappear into the distance. It had been 4 days since Kakarot left to find Master Roshi. Yamcha had returned fairly quickly with Chi-Chi, who seemed to adore the young bandit much to Yamcha's discomfort. After all, she was quite a bit younger than him. In the distance, a small figure appeared, approaching rapidly. Moments later, Kakarot arrived with the old master in tow. I found him, Kakarot announced, panting slightly from the exertion. He didn't have the Banshu fan, but he said he could put out the fire himself, so I brought him along. How'd you get back in just 4 days? Bulma asked, astonished. It's several hundred miles to where we met Roshi on the shoreline. Well, I did have to stop to eat and sleep, Kakarot replied, misunderstanding her question. To him, running long distances wasn't a big deal. In fact, the others had been slowing him down on this whole trip. Master, the Ox King exclaimed, running up to Roshi and interrupting any further conversation about Kakarot's quick return. I'm so pleased to see you. Now wait a minute, Ox, Roshi said sternly. What's this I hear about you killing a bunch of people over some stupid treasure? That's not the way I taught you when I trained you and Grandpa Gohan. Yes, Master, the Ox King said, bowing low. If you put out the fire, I promise I'll start being better. Very well, I'll put out the fire, Roshi said, tossing his shirt and turtle shell aside. He climbed up on the stone wall facing the torrent of fire on the mountain. He was a scrawny sight to behold, but Kakarot knew better. He knew the old man was stronger than he looked. What's he doing? Bulma whispered. Master's going to do his Kamehameha wave, the Ox King answered. It's a very hard move to learn, one that neither I nor Grandpa Gohan ever mastered. Kakarot watched with interest as the master readied to perform this mysterious technique. If it was powerful enough to put out this fire, he was definitely interested in learning more about it. Roshi readied himself and concentrated. In the next instant, his scrawny muscles suddenly beefed up as he became instantly buff. He then cupped his hands and began to chant, K, me, ha, me. Kakarot watched as blue energy began to form in the old master's hands. This technique wasn't all that different from the energy blasts he had been performing earlier, except with increased concentration, the blast was much more powerful. Even more powerful than someone with his power level should be able to muster. Ha! Roshi finished, shooting the blue beam of energy at the fire. There was a giant explosion, and when the dust settled, sure enough, the fire was out. But the mountain was gone and the castle lay in ruins. I guess I overdid it, Roshi said sheepishly. I must not be as rusty as I thought. That was amazing, Yamcha commented, wide-eyed. I wonder if I could do that, Kakarot mused to himself. That technique takes years to learn, Master Roshi said, hearing the boy. It took me 50 years to master it myself after I invented it. Kakarot took a stance and cupped his hands, focusing intensely. After making sure nothing important was in the way, he gathered his energy, concentrating it all into his hands. Ka, mi, ha, mi, he chanted. Blue energy began forming in his hands as he continued the technique. Ha, he shouted, launching a Kamehameha wave of his own. Though much smaller than Roshi's attack, it still packed a powerful punch and could have caused significant damage if it had hit anything. Very impressive, Roshi said, nodding with approval. You have a lot of potential to be a great warrior someday. I could teach you much. You've already agreed to train me when this is over, Kakarot reminded him. That I will, my boy, Roshi agreed. According to the bleeper, the Dragon Ball should be in this castle, Bulma said as the travelers walked up to a giant wooden door. Looks suspicious, Kakarot remarked, eyeing the imposing structure. Yeah, Puar said, floating near Yamcha's shoulder. No one good lives in a castle like this, so what do we do? Yamcha asked, looking uneasy. We knock, I suppose, Kakarot said. What if they're not friendly? Bulma said worriedly, remembering stories of an evil little emperor supposedly collecting the Dragon Balls. Could this be his castle? She wondered. Kakarot tapped his scouter. There aren't any high power levels in there, he said. If they're not friendly, we should be able to handle them. With that, the young Sen walked up and knocked on the door. Who is it? A voice asked from the speaker. We're looking for a small orange ball with a star in it, Kakarot answered, referring to the one-star ball they hadn't found yet. We're willing to offer payment for it, he added. Very well, the voice said. Come in, and we'll discuss it. With that, the door opened, allowing the travelers to enter the castle. Sire, Chu said, why are you letting them in? You idiot, Pilaf replied. There's no way we'd defeat that kid in a straight fight. That's why we need to trap them, and inviting them in is the best way to catch them off guard. Brilliant, sire, Mai said, nodding in agreement. Let's go, Bulma said, stepping into the dark hallway beyond the door. Wait, Kakarot cautioned. It could be a trap. Let's go slowly. With that, the travelers entered the castle and walked cautiously down the dark passageway to meet whatever awaited them. Now we've got them, Pilaf said with delight. Close the walls around them now. Kakarot turned as he heard a noise behind him. An instant later, a wall slid down, blocking their retreat. He jumped forward, but another wall was dropping in front of them. He was an instant too late to escape, and the young Sen was trapped along with his companions. Well, this is just great, Yamcha said, breaking the silence as he looked at the prison surrounding them. Maybe we can break the walls, Oolong suggested. After all, you and Kakarot are pretty strong. Not a bad idea to try, Kakarot admitted. He walked over to one of the walls and took a deep breath. Concentrating his strength, he slammed his fist into the wall. Unfortunately, the wall didn't budge, and all he got out of the experience was bruised knuckles. I'll try now, Yamcha said, attacking the wall with kicks and punches of his own. You're wasting your time, Kakarot said. If I couldn't punch through it, you're not going to get anywhere. Then what do you suppose we do? Yamcha asked, almost losing his temper. We wait, Kakarot replied calmly. Obviously, we're trapped in here for a reason. They probably want the Dragon Balls. They'll have to come and get them. That's probably our best chance of escape. Great, sire, Chu said happily. You have them trapped. Yes, Pilaf said evilly. Now we have them. But how are we going to get the Dragon Balls from them, sire? Mai asked, inadvertently spoiling her master's moment. Simple, Pilaf replied, clearly having thought this through. The room they are trapped in is equipped with knockout gas. All we have to do is knock them out, steal the Dragon Balls, and make my wish. Brilliant, Cho said, admiring Pilaf's cunning. Several hours later, the travelers woke up groggy and disoriented. What happened? Bulma asked, rubbing her eyes. Knockout gas, Yamcha said, shaking off the effects. So much for waiting for them to come and get the Dragon Balls, he added, glancing at Kakarot. Okay, so I was wrong, Kakarot admitted. We need to get out more urgently now. But punching the walls wildly won't help. We need a plan. Maybe you should try your Kamehameha wave, Yamcha suggested. It's worth a try, Kakarot agreed. He cupped his hands at his side and concentrated. Me, ha, he shouted, shooting blue energy out of his hands and into one of the walls. When the smoke cleared, there was a hole to the outside about 1 foot around. Not quite big enough to get out of, Kakarot said. But then something caught his attention. Down below were Pilaf and his minions with the 7 Dragon Balls, preparing to make their wish. We need to stop them, Bulma said urgently. He'll wish for something evil. I should have never started this quest, she thought. All I wanted was a boyfriend, and now look what happened. Oolong, Puar, Kakarot said, transform into something small and get down there to try to steal one of the Dragon Balls before they make their wish. With that plan, Oolong and Puar transformed into bats and flew out of the hole, heading toward the Dragon Balls. Arise, Shenron, Pilaf said just before Oolong and Puar could reach the Dragon Balls. The sky suddenly became dark, and lightning began striking the area. Finally, a huge bolt of lightning struck the Dragon Balls and remained. After a short time, the lightning took the shape of a green dragon. Shenron was released. You who have summoned me, the dragon spoke, its voice echoing with power. I will grant you one wish. Pilaf smiled wickedly. I wish for a pair of hot girl's panties, Oolong yelled, cutting off the emperor before he could finish. To be the undisputed ruler of the world, Pilaf finished, his voice overlapping with Oolong's. Your wish is granted, Shenron said as his red eyes glowed brightly. The dragon then vanished, and the Dragon Balls shot into the sky, scattering in 7 different directions across the planet. In the place of the dragon, a pair of girls' underwear appeared and fell onto Oolong's head. I'll get you for this, Pilaf shouted furiously, activating the knockout gas in the room once more. And when the travelers awoke, their surroundings had changed. Instead of the stone walls of the castle, they were now in a room with steel walls and a clear ceiling. Oolong and Puar were also back with them, having been captured again while the others were unconscious. Greetings, a voice said. On a screen, Pilaf's face appeared. You may have ruined my plans, but you will die for your crimes. There is no escape from this room. The walls are triple reinforced steel, much stronger than the other cell I had you in. The ceiling is made of the same material. Now, to the death part. When the sun rises, this room becomes an oven, and you will cook in it. We're going to die, Bulma sobbed, hearing the evil plan. Don't worry, Bulma, Kakarot said in a reassuring voice. That was one thing she liked about him. He never panicked and always seemed in control of the situation. If only she'd met him before this quest, she might not have had to find the Dragon Balls to wish for a boyfriend after all. Yeah, Yamcha said. Kakarot's Kamehameha wave might still get us out. I doubt it, Kakarot replied, but I'll try. He cupped his hands and concentrated. Me, ha, he chanted, shooting another Kamehameha wave at the wall. Everyone but Kakarot gasped in despair when they saw the wall undamaged. Now what? Oolong said, his tone hopeless. We still have one chance, Kakarot said. Tonight is the night of the full moon. As a Saiyan, I have the ability to transform if I look at the full moon. What do you mean transform? Bulma asked, confused. I become my Uzaru form, Kakarot explained. It multiplies a Saiyan's strength tenfold. That's one of the reasons we're such feared warriors. It sounds like there's something you're not telling us, kid, Oolong said, suspicious. Well, Kakarot said hesitantly, I haven't completely mastered the form yet. So you can't use all its power? Yamcha asked. No, Kakarot replied. It's not that. I just don't have much control. It's getting better with each transformation, but it's still not perfect. That's why when I start to transform, I want you to grab Bulma and get as far away as possible. Is there any way to reverse this once it happens? Yamcha asked. I mean, if you go too crazy, the only way would be if I lost my tail, Kakarot admitted. But if you cut my tail off, I will kill you. Fine, Yamcha said reluctantly. We'll just keep our distance. All right, Kakarot said, sitting down and assuming a meditative posture. What are you doing? Bulma asked, puzzled. I'm clearing my mind before I transform, Kakarot replied. It helps with controlling the Uzaru form. Kakarot meditated for about 30 more minutes before he opened his eyes and looked up at the full moon outside. Suddenly, the pupils of his eyes disappeared and his heart started beating more rapidly. His face began to morph into a snout, and his body started growing. Hair covered his entire body, and he grew to about 20 feet tall. To the amazement of those around him, his Saiyan armor stretched to accommodate his increase in size. The walls around them crumbled as Kakarot's body became too big for the prison. Let's go, Yamcha said, grabbing Bulma, Puar, and Oolong and running out of the way of Kakarot's massive feet. The Uzaru ignored them for the most part, focused on destroying what was left of Pilaf's castle. Kakarot roared as his fist smashed through one of Pilaf's towers. Although he was aware of his surroundings, he was still filled with incredible rage and had to let it out. This was common during his Uzaru transformation, but he felt he had more control than he used to. At least he thought he had enough control not to trample anyone he cared about. We've got to stop him, Bulma said, watching the destruction in horror. Look at the damage he's causing. I'm not getting involved in that, Yamcha said, shaking his head. He was truly terrified of the beast Kakarot had become. To be honest, he was also scared of what Kakarot might do to him if he cut off the boy's tail. Suddenly, the Uzuru was distracted by a plane taking off from the ruins of the castle. Looks like Pilaf's trying to escape, Yamcha said. The plane climbed high enough to escape the monster, but Kakarot turned his head toward it, opened his mouth, and shot a blast at the plane, hitting the wing and causing it to spiral down and crash in the distance. Satisfied that he had taken his revenge for his imprisonment, Kakarot's anger subsided somewhat, making it easier for him to regain control. Look, he's stopped destroying things, Oolong pointed out as they watched Kakarot begin to wander aimlessly around the area, occasionally smashing something but relatively calm for the most part. The next morning, Yamcha, Bulma, Oolong, and Puar looked around the rubble of Pilaf's castle. Kakarot had certainly done a number on the place. Yamcha hoped never to be on the receiving end of that kind of rage. There he is, Bulma said, walking over to a sleeping Kakarot. After a little shaking, the boy woke up. That really takes it out of you, he said groggily. That was scary, Bulma said, relieved he was back to normal. I know, Kakarot replied, and believe me, I'm working on better control. I'm glad to know I have enough control not to attack you. It would be terrible if you got hurt. Bulma blushed slightly. So where are you going now that we're done hunting the Dragon Balls? She asked, hoping to spend more time with him. I'm going to train with Master Roshi, Kakarot answered flatly. I need to get as strong as possible. I'm going to train too, Yamcha said, determined. I'll want a rematch someday. Kakarot grinned. I look forward to it. You're on, Kakarot said, actually smiling. How about at the next World Martial Arts Tournament? Yamcha suggested. Sounds good, Kakarot agreed. I'll come watch, Bulma added, blushing at the young Sen again. Kakarot stepped onto the island that housed the great Master Roshi. The old master's house was simple, painted white with a red roof, but it served the old man well. Hey old man, Kakarot yelled. I'm ready for my training now. Roshi poked his head outside the house. Well, if it isn't my young Saiyan friend. Finished with that task of yours, did ya? Where's that pretty girl companion of yours? She went home while I train, Kakarot answered. Now let's get started. Their conversation was interrupted as a small, bald-headed boy landed headfirst in the sand. Apparently, he had decided to make an entrance by jumping from his boat to the shore. He'd made an entrance, all right. Kakarot tried to suppress a laugh but couldn't quite manage it. A minute later, the old master and Kakarot had pulled the boy free of the sand and set him upright. Who are you? Kakarot asked in a harsh tone. For your information, the boy answered just as harshly. I'm Krillin. I have traveled a great distance to train with the great Master Roshi. Beat it, Kakarot replied. Master Roshi already has a much more promising student than you. The boy has a point, Roshi confirmed. I did promise to train him, and I don't usually take 2 students. I brought you some reading material, Krillin said, pulling out and handing the old master several dirty magazines. Roshi's eyes went wide at such a beautiful sight, but he quickly composed himself. You'll have to do better than that, he told Krillin. Your first task is to find me a beautiful girl for a date. That's not the task of a martial artist, Krillin protested. Do you want me to train you or not? Roshi replied firmly. Fine, Krillin grumbled. But are you going to make him find you one too? No, Roshi said. I don't think so. I already have an arrangement with him. Krillin turned and uncapsuled a jet copter and got in. Fine, I will return with one for you then. After Krillin had left, Roshi turned to Kakarot. Alright, before I train you, I have some questions for you. Go ahead and ask then, Kakarot said. Okay, Roshi began. Why do you want to learn from me? Well, Kakarot said, I want to learn any techniques that might be useful in a fight. That's what I was afraid of, Roshi said with a sigh. You know martial arts aren't just for beating up people and impressing girls. It's for defending those who cannot defend themselves. You mean like an entire race of people who were killed by an evil tyrant of incredible strength, Kakarot said, a hint of bitterness in his voice. Yes, sort of like that, Roshi admitted. Is there something you want to talk about? I'm the last of my race, Kakarot stated flatly. An evil being named Frieza destroyed my planet and my people. He rules most of this galaxy with an iron fist. I need to get strong enough to beat him. Are you sure that's even possible? Roshi asked, a bit surprised. I'm a Sen, Kakarot replied confidently. We're a warrior race. I will defeat him someday. I won't let what happened to my planet happen to this one. Let's just say I've become fond of it since I grew up here. That's all I needed to know, Roshi said, nodding. Your intentions are good, and it sounds like it's important that you become strong. You have the potential to become the strongest on the planet, and if something that bad really is out there, I'll do everything I can to help you be ready if it comes here. Let's get started then, Kakarot said eagerly. Let's wait a little while. I have a feeling our young friend will return soon, and we'll have to be moving before we start the training. There's not enough room on this island. Fine then, Kakarot said. walking over and sitting cross-legged on the sand next to the house. I'll just meditate a little while, I'm waiting. A few hours later, Krillin returned with a tall, skinny brunette woman in short shorts and a tank top. Roshi looked up and immediately fell over with a nosebleed. This is Launch, Krillin said with a grin. Very good work, my boy, Roshi replied, regaining his composure. You can train with us. Yeah, Krillin exclaimed, excited to be training with the great Master Roshi. Shall we have our first lesson then? Master Roshi suggested. Launch, would you like to join us? I don't fight, Launch said hesitantly. Martial arts is good for many things, Roshi replied. It helps with physical fitness and concentration. Okay, Launch agreed. Wait before we start, Roshi said, running into the house. A few minutes later, he came out with 4 boxes. We need training uniforms. He pulled out 4 sets of black lingerie with pink lace. I'm not wearing that, Kakarot said flatly, ruining the master's plans. It gives you unrestricted movement, Roshi said, still trying to convince Launch to wear the underwear. My armor is fine, Kakarot said. He knew full well what the old pervert was up to, and he wasn't going to be caught dead wearing something like that just so the old man could get a show. Fine, Roshi said with a sigh. The training gear is optional. He handed a pair to Launch and Krillin, leaning over to Krillin to plead, just wear it and back me up. A few minutes later, the 4 were doing stretches. Krillin, Master Roshi, and Launch were all dressed in the special training gear while Kakarot remained in his sane armor. Ah, choo, Launch sneezed. Suddenly, her hair changed from brown to blonde, and her attitude shifted dramatically. So you dressed me up like a doll, she said angrily. Well, this doll comes with its own machine gun. The blonde girl pulled out a submachine gun and pointed it at the 3 martial artists. Before she could fire, Kakarot shot forward and pushed the muzzle of the gun up, causing all the shots to go into the air. Before she could fire again, Launch sneezed, turning back to her innocent self. Sorry about that, she said sheepishly. My personality changes when I sneeze. The next day, Roshi and his students had packed up everything and moved to a bigger island where they'd have more room for training. Roshi now stood outside with his 2 pupils. Launch had decided not to train with them and was instead inside the house cooking. Now first things first, Roshi said. I'm going to test your speed. How fast you run is a good indication of how strong you are. Krillin, would you like to start us off? Sure thing, Master, Krillin said with a smug grin. He went to the starting point while Roshi stood about 100 yards away with a stopwatch. Go, Roshi said. Krillin sprinted to the tree where Roshi was standing. 8.5 seconds, Roshi said, nodding. Not bad at all. All right, Kakarot, your turn. Kakarot lined up at the starting line. He'd traded his armor today for a loose-fitting pair of black pants and a white tank top, figuring the protection might hinder his training if they sparred. Go, Roshi said. Kakarot closed the distance to the tree in a blur. 7 seconds flat, Roshi announced, surprised. He hadn't thought the boy had that much potential. Now, I bet you boys want to see how strong the master is. It's all right, Kakarot said. I already know how strong you are. And how do you know that? Krillin asked sarcastically, still bent out of shape at having his time beaten. It's called a scouter, Kakarot said, pointing to the device over his eye. It measures a fighter's fighting strength. Moving on, Roshi said, breaking the tension between his 2 students. Your next test will be, he said, taking a small rock and drawing a symbol on it. To find this rock, he threw the rock off a cliff and into the trees below. The one that brings back the rock will get dinner. The one that doesn't will go without. If neither of you have returned within 30 minutes, you both will go without. With that, the old man walked into the house. How am I supposed to get down there? Krillin muttered to himself. Kakarot ignored the cocky yet clueless boy and jumped over the side. Using his energy to slow his descent, he landed lightly on the ground below and ran off into the trees. Wait up! Krillin yelled as he climbed his way down, knowing he was at a severe disadvantage now. Several minutes later, Krillin arrived at the bottom. To his surprise, he saw Kakarot walking toward him. Did you give up already? He asked in a cocky tone. No, I already have the stone, Kakarot said flatly, flashing the stone. How'd you find that so fast? Krillin asked in disbelief. Well, first, Kakarot replied, I paid attention to where he threw it, and it also has his scent on it. I'll make you a deal, Krillin said. How about we have a quick spar and the winner gets the stone? Kakarot grinned. Sure, if that's what you want. He placed the stone in a bag and tied it to his belt. Taking a fighting stance, he added, You know you don't stand a chance. We'll see, Krillin said. I've trained for 8 years under monks. They are great martial artists. The boy was interrupted as Kakarot shot forward and landed a punch squarely in his mouth. Krillin staggered back, but Kakarot never let up for a minute, coming around with a roundhouse kick to Krillin's head that sent the bald boy flying into a nearby tree. Krillin hit hard, then slumped to the ground. but he soon got to his feet, determination in his eyes. No fair, I wasn't ready, he protested. You proposed the fight, Kakarot said. You should have been ready. Angered, Krillin shot at Kakarot, hoping to catch him by surprise. He sent a kick at the boy's midsection, but Kakarot blocked it with an open palm. Krillin continued his offensive with a punch aimed at Kakarot's temple, but Kakarot leaned his head to the side and countered with a fist aimed at Krillin's stomach. Krillin brought his knee up just in time to block the blow, but he was amazed by the power behind it. Krillin wasn't going to let that stop him. He shot his head forward, surprising Kakarot with a headbutt to the face, bloodying the young Saiyan's nose. Taking advantage of the moment, Krillin kneed Kakarot in the stomach with as much strength as he could muster, doubling the Saiyan over. Finishing the move, Krillin sent a roundhouse kick at Kakarot, sending him flying back. Kakarot picked himself up off the ground and wiped some blood off his face. Not bad, he said, genuinely impressed. He shot back at Krillin, throwing a punch at the monk's face. Krillin moved to block, but realized too late that the blow was just a feint. Kakarot raised his other palm at point-blank range to Krillin's face and unleashed a small energy blast. Krillin was completely caught off guard by this move. He'd heard rumors of some of the great masters being able to manipulate energy, even about Master Roshi's legendary Kamehameha wave, but to think this boy could do such things seemed impossible. Yet he believed it when the blast hit him in the face, slightly burning him and sending him sprawling back. Kakarot shot forward again. He knew the blast he'd sent at Krillin wasn't powerful enough to hurt him badly. Hurting him wasn't the objective. The blast had been mostly a distraction. Kakarot kneed Krillin in the stomach, doubling the monk over. Then, bringing both hands down in an axe handle, he struck Krillin in the back of the neck hard, sending the boy into unconsciousness. All right, today we'll start training for real, Master Roshi announced to his two students as the morning sun rose behind him. He had been a little disappointed when he learned that Kakarot had already knocked young Krillin out in a sparring match, but Kakarot explained that Krillin had challenged him first. If that was the case, Krillin probably did need to be taken down a notch. The old master noticed that Krillin, the bald-headed student, was much quieter and more reserved today than before. We'll start off with a brief run, Roshi continued. After a few minutes of light jogging, they arrived at a small house where a goat man was stacking milk crates. You must be the one I talked to earlier, Roshi said to the man. We'll make sure to have all this delivered by breakfast. Excuse me, master, Krillin interjected. What does delivering milk have to do with martial arts? I don't know, Roshi replied with a hint of sarcasm. Maybe it has to do with having the discipline to do what you're told. Yes, master, Krillin said, slightly backing away from the master. Kakarot suppressed a chuckle. He wasn't exactly sure what delivering milk had to do with martial arts either, but he wasn't going to say anything, at least not until he had a chance to see what the training actually consisted of. After all, Master Roshi was incredibly strong, at least for a human. Surely that meant he was doing something right in his training. We'll start off easy, Roshi said. We'll skip the first 3 miles. Krillin's face dropped. Did he say 3 miles? He thought to himself, but managed to keep quiet. Several minutes later, the three arrived at a house and placed the milk at the door. Very good, Roshi said. Now for the next 2 miles, we'll zigzag through these trees down this path. Kakarot suppressed a smile when he saw Krillin's face drop again. He now understood the point of this training. It was to build physical endurance. While it might not be the most effective method of training, he would at least give it a chance. After arriving at the next house, Krillin panted heavily. Finally done. Not quite, Roshi said. We'll take a break from running with a few stairs. That'll be nice, Krillin muttered to himself. His face paled as he looked up and saw that a few stairs meant stairs all the way up a mountain. Let's get started, Roshi said as they began climbing. Kakarot relaxed in the cool grass outside the house. After delivering milk, they had plowed fields by hand, done construction work, and been chased by a shark while swimming laps. While the training was unconventional, Kakarot admitted to himself that he was tired from it. Now the old master had said to rest and they would continue training tomorrow. While Kakarot was tired, part of him was disappointed by this. He had hoped to get some good sparring in, but Krillin had been too exhausted to put up much of a fight, so the young Saiyan let it go. Several weeks had passed, and Kakarot and Krillin continued their daily routine, now with 50-pound turtle shells strapped to their backs. Master Roshi had avoided training them directly, insisting they stick to the routine and insisting they weren't ready to learn anything else. Man, I wish Master Roshi would teach us something, Krillin complained after one particularly grueling day of training. At least you're not almost dead after the routine now, Kakarot commented with a grin. It must be doing something. You do have a point, Krillin admitted reluctantly, but I'd like to make sure my fighting skills aren't getting dull. Well, why don't we spar a bit, Kakarot suggested, his eyes twinkling with excitement. I don't know. Krillin hesitated, remembering how easily Kakarot had beaten him the last time they sparred. "How about I wear my turtle shell?" Kakarot proposed. "That'll give you the advantage." "But you'll get creamed," Krillin said, concerned. "I'll just have to learn to be better then," Kakarot replied confidently. "Fine," Krillin agreed, thinking he'd get some payback this time. Krillin dropped his turtle shell and charged at Kakarot with newfound speed. He shot a fist at Kakarot's head, but the young Sen managed to dodge at the last second. Krillin was amazed at how much faster he was, even after only a few weeks of Master Roshi's training. Unfortunately, his moment of surprise was cut short as Kakarot's fist shot into his stomach. Krillin doubled over from the blow, not expecting Kakarot to be so quick even with the turtle shell on his back. Shaking off the pain, Krillin blocked another punch aimed at his head and countered with a sweeping kick to take Kakarot's feet out from under him. Kakarot jumped over the attack and backflipped out of range of the next punch aimed at his body. He shot forward with an uppercut aimed at Krillin's jaw, but the weight of the turtle shell slowed him just enough for Krillin to deflect the blow with his arm. Taking advantage of the opening, Krillin punched Kakarot in the stomach, causing him to double over. A small drop of blood shot from Kakarot's mouth and landed on his white tank top. Master Roshi watched the sparring match from the porch of his house. He knew this day would come when Kakarot would need more than just physical endurance exercises. The boy was impatient and felt the need to become the best as soon as possible. Roshi could sympathize with his sense of urgency. If there was an alien out there that had destroyed his people, it could come to Earth and strike at any time. It was no wonder the boy wanted to train constantly. While his original plan had been to have them defeated at the next tournament to keep them humble and motivated to keep training, Roshi decided he could help them more than he had originally planned. After all, Kakarot wasn't likely to lose his drive to train as long as there was still this mysterious alien out there, and Krillin wasn't likely to beat Kakarot if they trained the same amount. Roshi continued to watch the fight. No, they weren't quite ready, the old man decided. He'd let them train on their own if they wanted. If they got strong enough doing that, he'd start instructing them on more of the advanced techniques of the turtle style. Several months passed as the boys continued to train. Kakarot stood alone near the beach after their daily routine. He was hardly winded from the workout anymore, which he had to admit was an improvement. He knew he was much stronger than he'd been when he and Krillin had started the training. They had also been sparring every afternoon after their workout for the past few months. Today, Kakarot decided to postpone the spar and work on controlling his energy. Me, ha, Kakarot shouted as he sent his 20th Kamehameha wave into the ocean. "Very good," a voice said from behind him. Kakarot turned to see Master Roshi standing there. "Want some instruction?" "I think I've got it," Kakarot said. "It wasn't all that hard to learn. You may have learned to perform the move," Roshi said, "but you haven't mastered it yet." "How's that?" Kakarot asked, curious. "You need to learn how to put more of your energy into it," the master replied. "Try holding the energy and putting as much of your energy into it as possible before releasing it. That will build your endurance faster and let you make stronger Kamehameha waves." "What made you want to start training me?" Kakarot asked. "You haven't really helped much these last few months." "You weren't quite ready," Roshi said. "Now I think you are. I'll give it a try then," Kakarot said. Me. Kakarot gathered the blue energy in his hands. He continued to push more energy into his hands until he thought he had no more to give. "Ha!" he finished, releasing a much larger Kamehameha wave into the ocean. "Very good," Roshi said, impressed. "I'm amazed you've managed to channel so much energy into it so easily. It took me nearly 50 years to master that move." "It was nothing," Kakarot said, panting from the effort. "Now, if you do as many of those as you can every day, you'll get stronger in no time," Roshi said. "Now to work on your reflexes." "How are we going to do that?" Kakarot asked, intrigued. "Well," Roshi responded, "since you seem to like sparring so much, I figured we'd tune your reflexes by having you spar against someone stronger than you." "All right, let's do this," Kakarot said, taking a fighting stance. "Wait," Roshi said. "Krillin," he called out. "Yes, master," the monk said, running over from where he'd been quietly meditating. Since he'd seen Kakarot so easily use energy waves, he was determined to duplicate the move as well. "Come over here," Roshi instructed. "You two are going to both spar against the old master." "True Saiyans fight alone," Kakarot said, his voice full of determination. "Then true Saiyans are foolish," Roshi said sternly. "Having allies and working as a team against a stronger opponent is an important skill if you ever want to be a great warrior. Sometimes your opponent may be much stronger than you. At times like that, you must work together to beat your opponent." "All right, let's get started then," Kakarot said, getting into a fighting stance. "Right," Krillin agreed. Also assuming his stance, the two boys charged at the old master, throwing punches aimed at his head. Roshi easily ducked Kakarot's punch and sidestepped Krillin's. The boys kept coming, but Roshi continued to block their uncoordinated attacks without too much trouble. Kakarot kept throwing kicks and punches at the old master, but Roshi still managed to stay ahead of the blows, even with Krillin attacking him at the same time. Suddenly, what Roshi had said sank in. Kakarot realized that if he wanted to win this spar, he'd have to work with Krillin and somehow coordinate his attacks with the monk. Out of the corner of his eye, Kakarot saw Krillin throw a left hook at Roshi. Seizing the opportunity, Kakarot shot his foot out, catching the master in the head with a kick as Roshi dodged Krillin's punch. Roshi went flying back from the blow but quickly recovered. "Very good," the master said, smiling. "You're starting to get it now, but now I'm going to quit going easy on you." With that, Roshi charged at his two pupils. First, he threw a punch at Kakarot that the boy managed to block. At the same time, Krillin came in with a kick aimed at the old man's stomach, but Roshi blocked it just in time, returning a punch to Krillin's gut for his trouble. Kakarot came in behind the old man with a left hook aimed at Roshi's head, thinking the old man was distracted, but received an elbow to the face for his trouble. Kakarot got up, wiping blood from his face, and grinned. Now, this was the kind of fight he'd been waiting for. He charged back into the fray, throwing kicks and punches wildly at Roshi while Krillin did the same. Roshi managed to stay ahead of most of the blows but couldn't block or dodge them all. To the old master's credit, he dealt out more blows than he received. Kakarot's endurance was nearing its limits as he continued to throw kicks and punches at the old master. Sensing this, Roshi went on the offensive, driving a fist into Kakarot's stomach, doubling him over. Without wasting a second, Roshi shot his knee up, catching Kakarot in the chin and sending him flying into the air. Roshi then dodged a kick from Krillin and jumped up, catching Kakarot with an axe handle and sending him crashing into the ground hard. Seconds later, he turned his attention to Krillin, sending a kick at the boy's head and launching him into a rock formation. The old man shot forward to follow the monk, but was interrupted by a small ki blast hitting the back of his head. He turned to see Kakarot standing in a small crater, one hand covering his ribs and the other outstretched from firing the blast. The boy's white tank top was ripped in several places, and his black pants had holes in both knees. The young Sen was also covered in scratches and bruises. "I'm not finished yet," Kakarot declared, charging at the old man and throwing a flurry of kicks and punches. Unfortunately for him, Roshi dodged them all effortlessly and retaliated with several powerful blows of his own. Minutes later, Roshi landed another devastating punch to Kakarot's face, followed by a sweeping kick to his ribs, sending the boy flying to the ground once again. Kakarot struggled to his feet, determination burning in his eyes. He cupped his hands to his side and began chanting, "Ka, me, ha, me." He poured as much energy as he could into the wave aimed at Roshi. "Ha!" he shouted, unleashing the powerful beam. "Kamehameha," Roshi chanted calmly, gathering his own energy and firing it back at Kakarot's beam. The old master's attack easily overpowered the boys, sending both beams back at Kakarot with tremendous force. The explosion that followed was immense. When the smoke cleared, Kakarot still stood, his clothes even more tattered than before. His body was now almost completely covered with cuts, bruises, and burns. The young Saiyan took a step forward but quickly collapsed, unconscious from the attack. Roshi grinned, his eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "I've still got it," he said to himself, pleased at having beaten both his students. "Though if Kakarot keeps this up, I'll have to start training myself again," he mused. The day of the tournament finally arrived. Roshi stood outside Kame House with his two students. "Now you can take off your turtle shells," Roshi said. "You won't need them at the tournament." "Good," Krillin said, relieved. "I thought we'd look silly." Kakarot simply dropped his shell to the ground as if he'd never noticed the weight in the first place. "I've got something for you," Launch said, coming out of the house with a bright smile. "2 new suits to wear to the tournament." "No offense," Kakarot said, "but I think it'd be better if I just wore this to fight in." "Oh yeah, silly me," Launch replied with a smile, slightly embarrassed. "The suits are just to wear on the way," Roshi explained, handing the suits to Kakarot. "I'm not wearing that thing," Kakarot said, sounding irritated. "Well, all right then," Roshi said, a bit taken aback. "I was hoping to give you these at the tournament, but I suppose you can wear them now." The old man turned and handed his students 2 boxes. Krillin eagerly opened his first, revealing an orange martial arts gi with a blue undershirt and the turtle symbol on it. "This is awesome," Krillin said, excited about the new fighting uniform. Kakarot opened his box to find a green gi with a black undershirt. His also had the turtle symbol on the back. "The colors are to match your armor," Roshi said. The symbol is to show that you're my student. Kakarot didn't quite know what to say. He loved it. The Sen boy smiled, something he rarely did. Thanks, he said, taking the uniform inside to change. An airplane and taxi ride later, the warriors arrived at the World Martial Arts Tournament. We need to sign up for the tournament, Roshi told the attendant. How many are in your party? The attendant asked. There are 3 of us fighting, Roshi responded. Who are the people fighting? The attendant inquired. Myself and the 2 boys, Roshi replied confidently. Are you kidding? The man asked, incredulous. An old man and 2 children? No, I'm not kidding, Roshi yelled at the man. We're all going to fight. Originally, Roshi had planned to fight under the alias Jackie Chun but had decided against it. He knew that Kakarot would have no problem going all out against him even if he knew who he was. Kakarot, a voice yelled from across the way, interrupting Roshi's thoughts. Hey, I knew you'd come, an excited Yamcha said, approaching the group. Ready for that rematch? Sure, Kakarot said with a grin. It's your funeral. We'll see about that, Yamcha said confidently. I've been training extra hard just to beat you. Let's see how strong you are then, Kakarot said, fixing his scouter to his eye. Hitting the button on the side, he got a reading. 90, not bad, he said. That certainly is an improvement from last we met, a voice said from behind them. But my money is still on Kakarot beating the tar out of you. Hey Bulma, Kakarot said, turning to the girl who had just joined their conversation. I see you made it. Yeah, I wouldn't miss this for the world, she responded nervously. The night passed quickly with old friends catching up, and before they knew it, the next morning had arrived, and it was time for the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament to begin. An old man with a long gray mustache stood in front of the group of assembled fighters. Now listen up, the man said, because I don't want to have to repeat myself. We'll be playing single elimination in the qualifying rounds. You'll be divided into 4 groups, and the top 2 from those groups will go on to the finals. You lose if you are knocked out, thrown from the ring, or kill your opponent. After a few minutes and a few more rules being explained, the contestants drew numbers. What number did you get? Krillin asked Kakarot. I got 46, he said, holding up his number. 70. Kakarot said, showing his number to Krillin. What? Krillin exclaimed. That puts us both in Tier 3. Kakarot chuckled as he watched the fear on Krillin's face at the prospect of fighting him. Don't worry, he said. We're on opposite sides of the tier, but you'll have to fight me eventually if you hope to win. I'll be in the finals. And I'll be in there with you, Yamcha said, joining the 2 warriors. I'm in Tier 2, by the way. Will the first 2 fighters come up? The attendant announced. I need numbers 69 and 70. Kakarot walked up to the ring and stared down his opponent. He didn't have his scouter on for the tournament, but he wasn't worried. While the man towered over him in height and stature, Kakarot was sure he could easily beat him. Hey, it's Kakarot, Bulma said from the window where she was watching with the reluctant help of Oolong. Ready? Fight! The announcer declared. I'll smash you, Kakarot's opponent boasted. Not likely, Kakarot replied as he jumped over the man's fist and sent a roundhouse kick to the giant's face. The man flew out of the ring, through the wall, and out of the stadium, landing unconscious. We have a winner, folks, the attendant announced. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? The announcer said to the crowd gathered to watch the fights. It's time for the 21st Annual World Martial Arts Tournament. The matches will be as follows. Bacterium vs. Krillin, Roshi vs. Yamcha, Lanfan vs. Nam, Kakarot vs. Giran. Now, can I have our first 2 contestants up to the ring? Krillin and Bacterium each walked into the ring, with everyone holding their noses as the stench from Bacterium hit. Finish him quickly, Kakarot advised. He's not that strong. Right, Krillin said, holding his nose with one hand. Ready? Fight, the announcer shouted. Bacterium stalked toward Krillin, causing the boy to back up due to the odor. How am I supposed to hit this guy if I can't even get close to him? Krillin thought as he backed away from Bacterium. Then the thought occurred to him. Pointing his hand toward Bacterium, he gathered his energy and shot a ball of ki at the smelly fighter. The ki ball exploded as it hit, carrying Bacterium from the ring and ending the fight quickly. Man, Krillin's good, Yamcha said as he watched the fight. You're easily impressed, Kakarot retorted. Just wait until we hit the finals, Yamcha said. We'll see how impressed you are then. Next up, we have Yamcha and Roshi, the announcer said, interrupting their argument. We'll see if you make it through this round, Kakarot said as Yamcha went up to the stage. Yamcha took a fighting stance as he stood across the ring from Master Roshi. While he'd breezed through the preliminary rounds of the tournament, he knew now he faced a real opponent. Ready? Fight! The announcer yelled, signaling the beginning of the match. Yamcha charged at the old martial artist and threw a punch at Roshi's face. Roshi leaned his head to the side and watched as the punch missed by bare inches. Yamcha followed up with a kick to the side, but Roshi quickly raised an arm to block the move. Yamcha flipped back to his side of the ring to regroup. Man, this guy's tough, he thought. Everything I've thrown at him he's dodged as if it were a joke. It's like he's not even trying. I don't remember him being this strong last time we met. He must have done some training too. Are you going to just stand there, or are you going to fight? Roshi said, taking his own stance. I'm going to fight, Yamcha declared as he charged at the old man again. This time, he feinted a punch at the old man's head and came around with the other leg, delivering a sweeping kick at the old man's legs. But Roshi was not fooled. The old man jumped over the kick before driving a punch into Yamcha's gut, sending the fighter sprawling back a few steps. Man, that hurt, Yamcha thought as he regained his composure. This guy's tough. I'll have to use my Wolf Fang fist against him. Yamcha took the stance of his famous move. Let's see how you like this one. Wolf Fang fist, he shouted as he charged the old man, throwing punches and kicks at a rapid pace. Roshi's hands moved like lightning as he blocked most of Yamcha's attacks. A few punches got through, but not enough to do much damage. Not bad, Roshi said after Yamcha had finished the attack. Now it's my turn. Roshi's hand moved so fast it created a wind that carried Yamcha from the ring and onto the grass. How'd you like that move? The old man taunted. What? Yamcha said, confused. How could I have lost so easily? Don't take it personally, Kakarot said, coming up beside his friend. The old man is pretty strong. The next match went by fairly quickly, with Nam making short work of Lanfan. Now it was Kakarot's turn to fight. Next up, we have Kakarot vs. Giran, the announcer said. Kakarot walked calmly up to the stage and faced off against his pterodactyl-like opponent. Giran looked mean and menacing, but the Saiyan wasn't terribly concerned. Ready, the announcer shouted. Fight! Kakarot stood his ground and grabbed the appendage, swinging the beast around by his tail. Not bad, he said, but this fight is over. Kakarot let go of the beast, sending him flying into the distance. Giran flapped his wings and slowed his descent. Not bad, kid. But I guess you forgot I could fly. Well, Kakarot said, so can I. The boy pushed his energy under him and shot at the flying beast, throwing punches and kicks in a furious attack. Giran was caught so off guard that he couldn't even begin to block. The dinosaur continued to get pummeled by the young Sen until, with a hard punch to the gut, the giant coughed blood. Kakarot wasn't finished though. The Sen brought a knee up into the monster's face, sending him flying high into the air. This time, Giran fell uncontrollably, coming down unconscious in the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer said, we have a winner. Now ladies and gentlemen, the World Tournament announcer's voice boomed through the arena after Kakarot had triumphed over Giran. We will take a few moments before the semi-finals to interview some of our younger contestants. Kakarot and Krillin walked up to the stage, standing beside the announcer. Now boys, the announcer began. Can I ask you a few questions? Sure, Krillin answered eagerly, while Kakarot stood silently, observing. So, Krillin, the announcer continued, I hear you are only 13 years old. How old are you, Kakarot? I'm 12, Kakarot replied. I'll be 13 soon, though. From what we've seen, you two are incredible fighters. How do you become so skilled at such a young age? Training, Kakarot said simply. I've heard you boys were trained by the legendary Master Roshi, who is also competing in this tournament. Is that true? Yes, Kakarot confirmed. But I also do some training on my own. And what does this training involve? Mostly physical endurance, sparring, and some energy manipulation, Kakarot explained. Energy manipulation? The announcer asked, intrigued. Well, Krillin began, trying to explain. You have to concentrate and bring out. It's like this, Kakarot interrupted, forming a glowing ball of energy in his hand. He swiftly shot it at a nearby statue, causing it to shatter, much to the amazement of the audience. Kakarot stepped down from the stage, ready to watch the upcoming fight between Krillin and Master Roshi. He doubted Krillin could defeat their wise and powerful master. Kakarot, Bulma's voice called out. The Saiyan walked over to the stands where Bulma was waiting. Before he could speak, she invited him. Kakarot, will you sit with me to watch the fights? Sure, Kakarot agreed. Bulma had secured front row seats, giving them an excellent view of the action. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice resonated again. The first fight of the semi-finals is about to begin. On one side, we have the incredible young fighter and student of the great Master Roshi. On the other side, we have the old master himself, Master Roshi. This promises to be an exciting matchup. Has the student surpassed the master? Do you think Krillin can beat the old man? Bulma asked Kakarot. Her curiosity piqued. She remembered how Yamcha, another friend, couldn't even touch Roshi. He won't win, Kakarot stated flatly. Roshi is much stronger than Krillin, but I think he'll do better than Yamcha. Ready, fight, the announcer declared, interrupting their conversation. Bulma and Kakarot turned their attention to the fight. Krillin focused on Master Roshi, searching for any gaps in his defense. He had sparred with Roshi many times, but always with Kakarot by his side. Now, facing the Master alone, he felt a surge of doubt. Before Krillin could fully process his thoughts, Roshi launched at him, throwing a punch with lightning speed. Krillin managed to raise his arm to block, but the impact still hit with earth-shattering force. Krillin countered the punch with a swift kick aimed at the old master's legs, but Roshi leaped over the attack, immediately launching another blow at his student. Within seconds, the two were exchanging punches and kicks faster than most of the audience could follow. A few minutes later, the two fighters separated, Krillin panting heavily, while Roshi seemed barely winded. Now that was a good warm-up, Roshi said with a calm smile, but now it's time to get serious. He was only warming up, Krillin thought, his heart sinking. Summoning all his courage, he charged at the old man with a fierce punch aimed at his face. However, his fist passed through Roshi's afterimage, which vanished instantly. Roshi reappeared behind him and delivered a sharp elbow to Krillin's head, knocking his student out cold. Looks like Krillin is out, Bulma observed from the stands. Can you beat the old man? She asked Kakarot, her worry evident. She didn't want to see Kakarot get hurt. I don't know, Kakarot answered honestly, but I won't fall for something that simple. Their conversation was cut short by the announcer. Now I need Nam and Kakarot up to the stage for the next match. Kakarot hopped over the fence and headed for the ring. Good luck, Bulma called out to him. Kakarot and Nam stared each other down a few minutes later. Ready, fight, the announcer declared. I have to win the prize money so I can buy water for my family, Nam thought desperately as he charged at Kakarot, throwing a barrage of kicks and punches. But Kakarot blocked or dodged them all with ease. Not bad, Kakarot said during a brief lull in the fight, but it's time I end this. With a sudden burst of speed, Kakarot drove his fist into Nam's stomach, making him double over in pain. Without missing a beat, the young Sen delivered a powerful uppercut to Nam's chin, sending him flying into the air. Nam crashed to the ground but quickly got up, wiping blood from his mouth. This kid is good, he thought, but I have to win. He charged at Kakarot once more, but his fist only struck an afterimage. The next thing Nam knew, Kakarot's foot slammed into his face, sending the tall fighter out of the ring and onto the grass. Well, it looks like Kakarot is the winner of this one, the announcer said enthusiastically. He will face off against Master Roshi in the finals. Yeah, Kakarot, Bulma shouted from the stands. I knew you could do it. Are you ready for the match of the century? The announcer yelled into the microphone. In one corner, we have the great Master Roshi. In the other corner, we have his very own student, Kakarot. Ready, fight. Roshi leapt toward Kakarot without wasting a second. The old master aimed a right cross at his pupil, but the young boy blocked the punch and retaliated with a kick, forcing Roshi to go on the defensive. Kakarot wasted no time, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks at his master. To his credit, Roshi blocked every single one and even managed to return some blows of his own. A few minutes later, the two separated. Not bad, Roshi acknowledged. Not bad yourself, Kakarot replied. But the warm-up is over now. Warm-up? The announcer exclaimed, astonished. That was a warm-up? Let's get serious then, Roshi agreed, cupping his hands at his side. Ka, mi, ha, mi, the old master chanted, charging his signature attack. Ka, mi, ha, mi, Kakarot chanted, mirroring his master's technique. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer exclaimed, you are about to witness not one but two masters of the legendary Kamehameha wave in one place. Ha! Roshi shouted, unleashing his fully charged Kamehameha wave at Kakarot. Ha! Kakarot yelled, sending his own energy attack to meet Roshi's. The two beams collided in the middle of the arena, struggling for dominance before exploding in a massive blast, sending both fighters flying back to their respective corners. Kakarot picked himself up from the ground and dusted off his clothes as Roshi did the same. He's strong, Kakarot thought, but not unbeatable. It's time I show him some techniques he's never seen me use before. Let's try that again, he said aloud, cupping his hands once more. K, mi, ha, mi. Nothing original? Roshi asked, quickly cupping his hands. K, mi, ha, mi, ha, he shouted, sending his wave at Kakarot. The beam only passed through the fading image of the boy as his afterimage vanished. Ha! Kakarot shouted, firing his Kamehameha wave into Master Roshi's back at point-blank range. The attack pushed Roshi across the ring, crashing into a statue and collapsing in a heap of rubble. 1, 2, 3, the announcer started counting. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Before he could finish, the rubble shook, and Master Roshi emerged, wiping a trickle of blood from his lips. Not bad, he said. You got me on that one. Before he could finish, Kakarot was on him, launching a flurry of kicks and punches with unprecedented ferocity. Roshi managed to block the first 2 blows, but the third struck deep into his gut. Kakarot wasted no time and drove a knee into Roshi's exposed face, sending him flying into the air. Summoning his energy, Kakarot flew up, passing the out-of-control master, and brought both fists down on Roshi's head in a double axe handle move, smashing him into the ground with earth-shattering force. Hovering in the air, Kakarot cupped his hands again. Me, ha, he shouted, sending the energy attack into the crater after Roshi. Roshi looked up just in time to see the energy wave descending upon him. This kid doesn't mess around, he thought. I'm going to have to give this my all. The old master quickly bulked up his muscles and cupped his hands at his side. Hey, he roared, sending his most powerful Kamehameha wave to meet Kakarot's attack. The 2 beams collided in midair, and Roshi's wave quickly overpowered Kakarot's, pushing the combined force back towards the young Sen. Kakarot swiftly jumped out of the way, letting the energy beams fly past him and dissipate harmlessly into space. Roshi seized the opportunity, launching himself at Kakarot with a whirlwind of kicks and punches, hoping to catch the young Saiyan off guard. Kakarot blocked or dodged most of the attacks, but some blows managed to land. Undeterred, the young Sen began returning kicks and punches of his own, and soon the 2 fighters were moving faster than most of the audience could follow. After a few intense moments, the 2 separated, both panting slightly. Not bad, Roshi admitted, but you have no chance of winning this. You're all talk, Kakarot replied, wiping a trickle of blood from his mouth. This next technique will end the fight, Roshi declared. You have no chance of beating it. The old master's hands began to glow as he gathered energy for his next move. Before Roshi could finish his unbeatable technique, Kakarot shot forward, driving his boot into the old man's face. Roshi was sent flying across the stadium, crashing into one of the statues that decorated the ring. Kakarot wasted no time, launching a barrage of kicks and punches at Roshi before he could recover. Roshi managed to block Kakarot's fist from hitting his face and threw a punch of his own at the young Saiyan, but his fist passed through an afterimage. You really think I'm going to fall for that? He said, turning around and striking another afterimage. Kakarot hovered above the old master, watching as he attacked a 4th afterimage. He launched himself at Roshi with a flying kick, intending to deliver a finishing blow. Roshi looked up a second too late to see Kakarot's foot collide with his face, sending him flying across the ring toward the audience. Kamehameha! Roshi shouted, pointing his hand at the ground to propel himself back into the ring. Unfortunately, his energy was so low that the attack fizzled out just 6 inches from his hands. Roshi hit the ground outside the ring with a thud, skidding to a halt. Master Roshi is knocked out of the ring, the announcer shouted into the microphone. Kakarot is the new champion of the world. Kakarot, Bulma shouted, rushing to hug the newly victorious warrior. I knew you could do it. Thanks, Bulma, Kakarot said, hugging her back. Somehow, holding Bulma in his arms felt right. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed the sun setting quickly. Hey, Bulma, Kakarot said. Let's go find somewhere inside. Yeah, sure, Bulma agreed. What's the hurry though? It's a full moon tonight, Kakarot explained. I don't think anyone wants to see me transform in front of all these people. I don't have complete control yet. Right, Bulma said, looking concerned. And, Kakarot continued with a grin, I'm starving. After a hearty meal and a good night's sleep, Kakarot walked out to meet Master Roshi and the others. The morning sun was bright, casting a warm glow over the small island. Bulma approached the young San with a curious expression. So, what are you going to do now? Bulma asked. Train, Kakarot answered without hesitation. Don't you think you need a break from that? Master Roshi inquired, hoping for some downtime to pursue his own interests. More like I need a break so I can put the moves on launch, the old man thought slyly. No, Kakarot said firmly. I still need to be stronger. You're already the strongest in the world, Yamcha added, impressed. No offense, Kakarot replied, but that isn't good enough. I need to be stronger if I'm to have any hope of beating Frieza someday, he thought to himself. You can come train at Capsule Corp, Bulma suggested. I'm sure I can come up with some kind of training equipment that could help you get stronger. Maybe my dad could build a fighting robot or something. Sure, Kakarot agreed. I don't think there's much more I could learn from Master Roshi anyway. I'm already stronger than him. True, Roshi acknowledged. Going with Bulma to Capsule Corp to train could give you a good opportunity to see a part of the world you haven't seen yet. But, the old man continued, maybe you need a sparring partner while you're there training. Sorry, old man, Bulma said. You're not hanging out with us at Capsule Corp. I was talking about you taking Krillin, Roshi clarified. You could use a training partner. It may help you get stronger faster, and I'm getting too old to be sparring all the time. Then maybe I'll have some time alone without Krillin and Kakarot cramping my style, he thought. Well, if you're not going to have any students, Yamcha started, can I come train with you? Maybe then I can get strong enough to beat Kakarot, he hoped. Well, Roshi began. It might be a little cramped on the island. No, it won't, Krillin said. Yamcha can take my room. I'm going to train with Kakarot. Fine, Roshi conceded. I'll train you. If you get where you can beat the old man, Kakarot said with a grin. Come find me and we'll spar a bit. You're on, Yamcha replied confidently. A few months later, Kakarot sat cross-legged, meditating at Capsule Corp. He and Krillin had sparred earlier in the day, but Krillin had tired out some hours ago. The progress Kakarot felt was significant, yet he craved more. Sparring with Krillin was beneficial, but it wasn't the same as facing someone equal to or stronger than himself. Kakarot, Bulma called, walking in with a glass. I brought you some water. Thanks, Kakarot said, taking the glass and gulping down the water. So, Bulma began, trying to start a conversation. You seem to be getting stronger. She picked a topic she knew Kakarot would enjoy. Fighting and training were always on his mind. You certainly did a number on Krillin today. Not really, Kakarot replied. I needed him to be able to spar tomorrow, so I went easy on him. Bulma decided to change the subject. I noticed earlier that someone is gathering the Dragon Balls. What's that? Kakarot asked, getting up from where he was sitting and walking over to Bulma. Bulma pulled out a small device and clicked a few buttons. Look, here are 4 of the Dragon Balls gathered together, and another 2 are moving toward them. They're close to getting them all and making their wish then, Kakarot said thoughtfully. Where's the 7th Dragon Ball? There's one not too far from here, Bulma said, pointing to a spot on the device's screen. Then we should go and get that one and see who comes for it, Kakarot decided. It's not too far from here. We can get there pretty fast in a jetcopter, Bulma said, already planning the trip. Meanwhile, Yamcha stood by the sea, panting after performing his 10th Kamehameha wave. Very good, Roshi said, nodding approvingly. You've made good progress in the month since you've been training with me. Yeah, this training has been good, Yamcha agreed, wiping sweat from his forehead. I feel stronger already. I think it's time for you to take your training to the next level, Roshi continued, his tone serious. All right, Yamcha said eagerly. I'm ready. For the next part of your training, Roshi explained, you need to travel to the land of Korin. Once you get there, you need to climb Korin Tower and get the sacred water from Korin. Once you drink the sacred water, you will be much stronger. Kakarot, Bulma, and Krillin landed in a clearing not too far from West City. This looks like the place, Bulma said, checking the device again. The Dragon Ball should be right ahead. It must be over by the base of that huge tower, Kakarot said as the 3 exited the jetcopter. Kakarot was now dressed in his Saiyan battle armor, ready for any trouble that might arise. So what's this all about? Krillin asked, still a bit groggy. The last thing he remembered was passing out after a sparring match with Kakarot. Now, he found himself on this unexpected adventure. We're looking for a Dragon Ball to make sure no one evil is gathering them, Bulma explained to the young fighter. She turned to Kakarot. So what's the plan? We go down there and get the Dragon Ball, Kakarot replied simply. Then we wait and see who comes for it. Sounds good to me, Bulma said, following the young Saiyan down a path toward the tower. Several minutes later, the travelers arrived at the base of the tower and saw a single teepee in front of it. A tall Indian man and his young son greeted the visitors. I'm Bora, and this is my son, Upa. What brings you here? Bora asked, looking wary as if expecting trouble. We're wondering if you've had any visitors lately, Kakarot replied. You're actually the 3rd group to come by here in the last few days, Bora said. The first to come was a man seeking training from the great Master Korin. Training? Kakarot asked, his interest piqued. Yes, one of Master Roshi's students was sent here to climb Korin Tower as part of his training. It is said that if you reach the top of the tower and drink the sacred water, you will become many times stronger. Though it may only be a myth, I don't think anyone has ever reached the top. That must be Yamcha, Krillin said, squinting into the distance. He's the only student Master Roshi has right now. What about the other visitors? Bulma asked, her curiosity piqued. The others were men with guns, Bora replied, holding up the 4-star Dragon Ball for emphasis. They were looking for this. That sounds bad, Krillin murmured, his face darkening. Yeah, Bulma agreed, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Anyone who hires people with guns to get Dragon Balls by force isn't up to any good. Suddenly, she noticed something in the bushes. Bending down, she picked up an army hat with the red ribbon army symbol on it. This is definitely not good, Bulma said, her voice trembling slightly. From the looks of this hat, those men were part of the Red Ribbon Army, the most feared force on the planet. They will stop at nothing to get that Dragon Ball. Sounds like a challenge, Kakarot said with a grin. I say we stay here and guard the Dragon Ball and see if they send anyone strong to get it. What about the tower? Krillin asked, glancing up at the towering structure. Do you really think climbing it will make someone that much stronger? I don't know, Kakarot admitted. If Master Roshi sent Yamcha here, it must have some benefit. We should climb the tower and drink the water then, Krillin suggested, his voice brimming with determination. Then we'll be strong enough to take on whatever the Red Ribbon Army can send. Wait, Bulma interjected, worry evident in her eyes. What if they come while you're climbing this tower? All right, here's what we'll do, Kakarot said, turning to Krillin. You climb the tower first, and I'll stay down here and guard the Dragon Ball. When you and Yamcha come back down, you two guard the Dragon Ball while I climb the tower. Sounds like a plan, Krillin agreed with a nod. Kakarot sat meditating quietly, his mind focused and clear. It had been a week and a half since they'd arrived in the land of Korin. Bora and Upa had gone about their lives for the most part, like normal, while Kakarot had done some training. Bulma lived out of a capsule house for the most part. Krillin had started climbing Korin Tower the day they had arrived and had not yet returned. He also hadn't seen Yamcha come down from the tower either. So far, he hadn't seen any more of the soldiers that had attacked Bora for the Dragon Ball. Bulma stared out of the window, watching Kakarot meditating outside. It was kinda nice to get out away from the city for a bit. It was just like old times, searching for a Dragon Ball. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted as a pillar with a man on it crashed into the ground outside the capsule house. The man walked up to the teepee, and Bora came out to meet him. What do you want? The large Indian man asked the newcomer. I have come for the Dragon Ball you have, the man replied. He was a bit shorter than Bora, and not all that well built. He wore a pink robe with a fighting dojo symbol on the front and the words, "Kill you" on the back. Over my dead body, Bora said, his voice firm and unyielding. That's the idea, the man said with a smirk. My employer specifically said to eliminate you. Who are you? Bora demanded. I am Mercenary Tao, the man said, his tone chilling. And I will be your end. You'll have to go through me first, Kakarot declared, stepping between Bora and Mercenary Tao. No, Bora insisted firmly. This is my land to protect. I will fight to defend it. Kakarot quickly pressed the button on his scouter. Let's see, he thought. Bora's power level is 100 and this Tao guy is at 146. He turned to Bora. You can't beat him, the young Sen said. I have to try, Bora replied resolutely. This is my fight, not yours. Bora charged at Mercenary Tao with his spear, aiming to stab the fighter. Tao simply grabbed the spear, not allowing it to move. Ah, you can't move it. How about I try? Tao picked up the spear, Bora and all, and shook them. A moment later, he sent Bora flying into the air. I think you lost this. Tao hurled the spear at the Indian man. I don't think so, Kakarot said from above. What? Tao exclaimed in shock. How did you move so fast? I'm not going to let you walk all over people, the young Sen said, snapping the spear in half over his knee. He turned to Bora, who had since landed on the ground. I think I'll take over from here. I'll just have to kill you first then, Tao sneered. Doubtful, Kakarot replied confidently. You're horribly outmatched. Do you even know who I am? Tao demanded. I know that you're weaker than I am, Kakarot said calmly. I am the most feared assassin in the world, Tao said, charging at Kakarot with a flurry of kicks and punches. However, the young Sen blocked every one of them with ease. Tao backed away, panting. How can you be so strong? Not used to having someone stronger than you? Kakarot taunted. You insolent child, Tao spat. Just try and block this. Dodon Rei ha. The assassin shot a yellow beam of energy out of his fingertip, aiming right at Kakarot. Kakarot crossed his arms over his chest and braced for the assault. The beam hit the Sen head-on and exploded. No! Bora shouted, charging the assassin. You killed him. Tao blocked the punch that Bora threw at his head and delivered a deadly chop to the man's neck, ending Bora's life. Well, that takes care of that, Tao said, brushing his hands together. Now all I have to do is find the Dragon Ball. Not so fast, Kakarot said as the dust cleared from the attack. We haven't finished our fight. The young Sen looked to the side where Bora lay dead. I should have been able to stop him from dying, Kakarot thought. He turned to Tao. I won't let you kill anyone else. Try and stop me, Tao challenged. Without saying anything else, Kakarot charged forward and landed a knee in Tao's stomach, causing the assassin to double over. Not letting up for a second, Kakarot brought an elbow down on the back of Tao's skull. I'm going to finish this, Kakarot shouted, grabbing the assassin and throwing him up in the air. Me, ha, Kakarot shouted, sending a powerful blue beam of energy at his new enemy. The beam hit Tao with a resounding force, carrying him off into the distance before finally fading away. Kakarot collapsed to his knees, panting heavily. Are you okay? Bulma asked, rushing to his side. Yeah, Kakarot said, trying to catch his breath. I just overdid it a little. What if he comes back? Bulma asked, her voice filled with concern. I doubt that, Kakarot replied, shaking his head. I put everything I had into that last attack. I don't think he survived. Oh no, Bora, Bulma said, noticing the fallen warrior. She knelt beside Appa next to the Indian man. He's dead, she said softly. No, Appa wailed, tears streaming down his face. Don't worry, Bulma said, placing a comforting hand on Appa's shoulder. We'll get the other Dragon Balls and wish him back to life. Really? Appa said, his eyes wide with hope. Is that really possible? Yes, Bulma assured him. If you gather all 7 Dragon Balls, you can have any one wish. Kakarot's eyes snapped open as his scouter beeped insistently. He quickly identified the approaching power levels. 2 power levels, 160 and 180, he mused, tapping a button on his scouter to confirm the readings. This could be tough. Hey buddy, came a familiar voice from behind him. Yamcha and Krillin landed at the base of Korin Tower, looking exhausted but determined. How'd the climb go? Kakarot asked, realizing the 2 power levels were his friends. It was great, Krillin said with a grin. I feel much stronger than before. Yeah, Yamcha agreed, stretching his arms. Me too. Did we miss anything while we were gone? Krillin asked, looking concerned. Sorry it took so long, by the way. It only took us a week and a half, Yamcha said proudly. It took Master Roshi 3 years, Kakarot nodded, ignoring Yamcha's boast and focusing on Krillin's question. An assassin from the Red Ribbon Army showed up looking for the Dragon Ball. Yamcha's eyes widened. You must have beaten him, right? Yes, Kakarot replied, his voice heavy with regret. But he killed Bora before I could defeat him. We need to gather the rest of the Dragon Balls to wish him back. Let's get to it then, Yamcha said, his determination evident. Not so fast, Krillin interjected. You know how much stronger we got from climbing the tower? Yeah, Yamcha said, nodding. Well, before we go, Krillin continued, we should wait for Kakarot to climb the tower and drink the sacred water. It'll be worth it to have us all as strong as possible if we're going to take on an entire army. Excellent idea, Bulma said, joining the conversation. Yeah, Yamcha agreed. Krillin and I can handle anyone who comes for the Dragon Ball while you're gone. After you get back, we'll go beat all those Red Ribbon guys and get the Dragon Balls. Alright then, Kakarot said. I'll try to hurry. With that, the Saiyan boy leapt up and grabbed onto the tower, starting his climb into the sky. Kakarot groaned as he continued to climb the tower. He'd been at it for nearly 12 hours and was starting to get tired. He didn't know how much farther he had to go. Looking up, he saw what looked like the tower expanding outward. Is that the top? He wondered, climbing with renewed vigor. Reaching a small ladder, he climbed up into a small room. He had made it. Kakarot looked around but didn't see anyone. Walking over to a small staircase, he ascended to the next level where he saw a small cat-like creature holding a staff. Well, hello, the cat said. You're the 3rd visitor I've had this week. Are you after the sacred water too? Yeah, Kakarot said, nodding eagerly. I know, the cat replied with a knowing smile. I can read minds. I am Master Korin, in case you hadn't figured that out yet. So, Kakarot said, eager to get the water. Where's this sacred water that I came up here for? It's right here, Korin said, holding up a pitcher of water on the end of his staff. All you have to do is get it. Kakarot charged at the cat, reaching for the sacred water, but Korin moved out of the way so quickly that the sandboy couldn't get the bottle. You have to anticipate my movements, Korin advised. You can't just react to what I do. Kakarot closed his eyes, clearing his mind and focusing. With renewed determination, he launched himself at Korin once again. The cat moved to dodge, only to find Kakarot already behind him. Kakarot drove a knee into the cat's back, sending Korin sprawling forward. The bottle flew out of Korin's hands and into Kakarot's waiting grasp. You mean like that? The Saiyan boy said sarcastically as he opened the jug of water and started to drink it down. Very good, Korin said, getting back to his feet. Your old master took 3 years to get the sacred water. I thought your friends down there were impressive when it took them a week, but 3 minutes is a new record. I don't really feel that much stronger, Kakarot admitted, looking puzzled. Well, you shouldn't after drinking tap water, Korin revealed with a chuckle. Tap water, Kakarot echoed, stunned. Yes, Korin explained. There is nothing special in the water. You got stronger from the act of climbing the tower and the challenge of getting the water from me. Climbing the tower increased your endurance, and retrieving the water improved your speed and focus. But I don't really feel that much stronger, Kakarot insisted. Unfortunately, you were already too strong for the training to have the full effect, Korin said. The tower wasn't much of a challenge for you. So, you're saying I wasted my time? Kakarot asked, a hint of frustration in his voice. No, Korin replied calmly. You still learned focus and got a little stronger. Besides, I have something for you that I believe will make you much stronger in the long run. What's that? Kakarot asked, intrigued. They are called senzu beans, Korin said, tossing a small bean to the young Saiyan. If you eat them, your energy will be restored instantly, and you will be healed of all injuries. That does sound useful, Kakarot said, his eyes widening in excitement. With those, I could train even harder without worrying about recovering. They do take some time to grow, Korin warned, so use them sparingly. I can give you 10 of them right now, but it may take some time to grow more. Thank, Kakarot said, eating the bean Korin had given him and pocketing the other 9 in a small pouch. Wow, he exclaimed, feeling a surge of energy. I really do feel stronger now. Krillin and Yamcha looked up, noticing a dot rapidly descending from Korin Tower. A few minutes later, Kakarot landed gracefully in front of them. Wow, Yamcha said, amazed. How'd you come down that fast? Oh, that, Kakarot said with a grin. It was easy. All I had to do was jump and use my energy to slow myself down enough so I didn't go splat on the ground. You're back already? Krillin asked, astonished. It hasn't even been a full day. Well, Kakarot said, it wasn't that difficult to be faster than Korin, so you're done? Bulma asked, stepping forward. Yes, Kakarot confirmed. You must be super strong to have climbed that far so fast, Bulma said, her eyes sparkling with admiration. Sure, Kakarot said with a smile. Turning more serious, he added, we need to go get those other Dragon Balls. Let's go then, Bulma said, encapsulating a jet copter. The last Dragon Ball is heading toward us, sir, one of the soldiers reported to Commander Red as he sat in his fortified compound. So the one who defeated Tao is coming for us, Commander Red mused. Well, when he gets here, we'll have a few surprises for him. Ensure Dr. Gero is ready for our visitors. We're getting close, Yamcha said, his hands steady on the controls of the jet copter. All right, let's see if I can distract them, Kakarot said, taking the Dragon Ball and hopping out of the jet copter. I'll draw the fire from the defenses. You two land outside the compound and work your way inside. Bulma, you stay with the jet copter. Kakarot flew toward the compound under his own power. Missiles launched to intercept him, but the young Sen was too fast, weaving through the sky and dodging the explosions with ease. Minutes later, Kakarot landed in the middle of the compound. Soldiers rushed out, aiming their weapons, but Kakarot swiftly took them down with precise kicks and punches. Another group of soldiers approached but were swiftly taken out from behind by Krillin and Yamcha. I see you made it, Kakarot said, turning to his two friends with a grin. Yeah, Yamcha said, catching his breath. I don't think they even noticed us coming in. They were too focused on you. The 3 warriors continued to fight their way through the compound until they reached the command center. As they entered, they were greeted by Commander Red's smug expression. I'm impressed, he said, standing up from his desk. So, which one of you defeated Mercenary Tao? That would be me, Kakarot said, stepping forward confidently. Now hand over the Dragon Balls. Oh, I don't think so, Red sneered. You will all be begging me for mercy in the next few minutes. Kakarot tapped the button on his scouter and laughed. Your power level is only 15. You don't stand a chance against me. Oh, I know I don't, Commander Red admitted, his grin widening. But I don't intend on fighting you. After you defeated Mercenary Tao, we realized we'd need a warrior far more powerful. Unfortunately, we didn't have any warriors of such caliber, but we did have a brilliant scientist by the name of Dr. Gero. Dr. Gero had made many fighting machines for us in the past, some of which could maybe come close to Tao's level, but none of which could beat the mercenary. Commander Red's grin turned sinister as he continued. Recently, Dr. Gero has started research into a human-android hybrid. No one was willing to volunteer for his experiments, though. Does this have a point? Yamcha asked, clearly bored. I'm getting there, Commander Red snapped. With your defeat of Mercenary Tao, we had the perfect volunteer. You did quite the damage to the assassin, but with the help of Dr. Gero, he will now defeat all of you for me. A small door slid open, and a figure stepped out. It had Mercenary Tao's features for the most part, but one arm was fully mechanical, and metal patches were scattered across his body. Now you will all die, Commander Red concluded. Mercenary Tao, finish off the intruders. Surprised to see me, I see, Tao said with a smirk, addressing Kakarot. You must have thought I was dead after that last attack. I nearly was, but I managed to crawl back here, where the good Dr. Gero fixed me up and added some improvements. It won't be enough, Kakarot said confidently. He hit the button on his scouter and waited, but after a few seconds, he grimaced. The scouter was getting no reading on Tao. He didn't know how that was possible, but he didn't like it. Kakarot took a fighting stance, hiding any indication that he'd been caught off guard. Behind him, Krillin and Yamcha took similar stances. Tao moved like lightning, charging at Kakarot. His fist drove into the young Saint's gut, doubling the boy over. Tao didn't let up, following up with an elbow to Kakarot's face, sending him flying back into a building. Wow, Yamcha thought, watching the swift attack. That guy is fast. I could barely see him move. A few seconds later, Kakarot picked himself up off the ground and wiped a trickle of blood from his mouth. Not bad, he said with a grin. You've gotten a lot stronger. This will be fun. You have no idea how outclassed you are, Tao said. Dr. Gero made many improvements when he patched me up. I'm not afraid of you, Kakarot declared as he charged at Tao, throwing a flurry of kicks and punches at the cyborg. Tao blocked or dodged every one of them and started throwing some kicks and punches of his own. Kakarot tried to dodge the blows but was unsuccessful. It was all he could do to block most of the blows to minimize the damage. How's he so strong? Kakarot thought as he continued to block punches, still clearly on the defensive. I can barely keep up with him. Kakarot's in trouble, Krillin thought as he watched the fight. I better do something. Krillin charged into the fray, adding some blows of his own, trying his best to coordinate with Kakarot's attacks. Yamcha immediately leapt in after Krillin, joining the attack against the cyborg. So it's 3-on-1, Tao said, continuing to block their attacks. That just won't do. I want to exact my revenge on the boy without interference. Tao's fist shot out, hitting Krillin hard in the face and sending him flying back. Not missing a beat, Tao kneed Yamcha in the stomach, doubling the bandit over. With the interference cleared, he continued his assault on Kakarot. Tao's fist moved like lightning, hitting Kakarot in the shoulder and sending him staggering back. Kakarot recovered quickly and punched Tao in the chin. Tao barely flinched and continued his relentless attacks on the young Sen. Now it's time to finish you off, Tao said, elbowing Kakarot away from him. Dodon Ray, he shouted, sending a beam of yellow energy at Kakarot. The beam hit Kakarot full on, unguarded. The Sen was sent flying into a building, the bricks collapsing on him. Wolf Fang Fist, Yamcha shouted as he lunged at Android Tao with his signature move. His fists and feet became a blur of rapid strikes. However, Tao effortlessly blocked each attack with calculated precision, his movements almost lazy in their ease. The assassin then launched his counterattack, unleashing a series of brutal kicks and punches that battered Yamcha. With a final, devastating blow to the back of the head, Yamcha crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Krillin assumed a defensive stance, having just recovered from Tao's previous attack. He could feel the immense strength radiating from the assassin. How am I supposed to beat someone this powerful? He thought, fear creeping into his mind. Before Krillin could react, Tao was already in front of him. His fist moved faster than Krillin could see, slamming into his stomach and knocking the wind out of him. Krillin collapsed, gasping for air. Tao loomed over him, a sinister grin on his face. Now to finish you off, he said, laughing wickedly. Kakarot groaned, buried under rubble, his body battered and bruised. He could hear Tao's mocking words as the assassin stood over Krillin's motionless form. If only I could move, Kakarot thought desperately, straining to find the energy to save his friend. Tao's last attack had drained him significantly. He glanced down, noticing his hand was smeared with blood. His armor was shattered over his abdomen, and he was bleeding heavily from a wound. I'm in no condition to help, he realized grimly. A memory sparked in Kakarot's mind. He remembered how his injuries had miraculously healed after eating the special bean Korin had given him. If I can just reach one of those sensu beans, he thought, fumbling at his belt. His fingers found the pouch, and he pulled out a bean, bringing it to his mouth. He chewed and swallowed it quickly. In an instant, Kakarot felt a surge of energy as his wounds vanished. His strength returned, and he pushed the rubble away from his body, standing tall once more. Tao paused, confused as Kakarot rose to his feet. What? How is that boy still alive? I hit him with my best Dodon Ray. Leave him alone, Kakarot commanded, floating up to face Tao. Or what? Tao sneered. You can't defeat me. We've already established that. But if you insist, I'll finish you off first. You seem to have a nasty habit of surviving. You won't win this time, Kakarot declared, feeling stronger than ever. He remembered his father's words about getting stronger after every tough battle. You don't stand a chance against a true Saiyan warrior, he shouted, charging at Tao and driving his knee into the android's stomach. Tao spat blood as Kakarot's knee connected. He swung his elbow towards Kakarot's face, but the young Sen blocked it effortlessly with his forearm. How did you get so strong? Tao demanded, disbelief etched on his face. I was just beating you senseless a moment ago. You should be dead. Funny thing about Saiyans, Kakarot replied with a smirk. The more you beat us up, the stronger we get. He mimicked Tao's earlier move, delivering an earth-shattering elbow strike to the assassin's face. Tao backed away from the blow, shaking the stars from his vision. It was inconceivable that this boy could be this strong. Tao had trained all his life and had even let Dr. Gero turn him into an android, making him nearly twice as powerful as before. Yet this boy, this young Sen was still defeating him. He knew Dr. Gero was using this time to get as far away as possible. The doctor never fought his own battles. Dr. Gero preferred to plot from the shadows. If only I could escape and plan with him, Tao thought. He knew the enhancements Dr. Gero had given him were impressive but rushed. Imagine what the doctor could achieve with more time. Tao's thoughts were interrupted by a powerful kick to his chest, sending him sprawling and knocking the breath out of him. The blow was followed by an axe handle to the head, slamming him into the ground and creating a small crater. Kakarot floated above the fallen assassin. You know, you could at least concentrate and give me a challenge. Tao fumed. The boy's arrogance was infuriating. He charged out of the crater, throwing a flurry of kicks and punches with everything he had. Kakarot laughed, effortlessly blocking Tao's attacks. Is that all you've got? He asked, his voice mocking. Panting, Tao backed away. I'll show you, he yelled. Dodon Ray, he shouted, unleashing his deadly beam towards Kakarot with all his might. Me, ha, Kakarot chanted, sending his own beam to meet Tao's attack. The Kamehameha wave quickly overpowered the Dodon Ray, washing over Android Tao and leaving no trace of the assassin when the smoke cleared. That was amazing, Krillin said, struggling to his feet. I thought we were goners. Yeah, Yamcha added, patting Kakarot on the back. Way to hold back and make the fight look good. I wasn't holding back, Kakarot said seriously. But he was knocking the tar out of you earlier, Krillin said. How'd you suddenly turn it around? Well, Kakarot began. After he hit me with his beam, I thought I was dying. Then I ate one of these. Kakarot held up a sensu bean. It healed me and restored my energy. Can I try one? Krillin asked eagerly. Kakarot tossed a sensu bean to his friend. Wow, I feel completely healed, Krillin said after chewing and swallowing the bean. But I don't feel any stronger than before. Oh, Kakarot explained. That's because you're not a Saiyan. When Saiyans get hurt badly by a stronger opponent, they become much stronger after they heal. How does that work? Yamcha asked, skeptical. I'm not sure myself, Kakarot admitted. It must be genetic or something. After a few minutes of searching, Kakarot, Yamcha and Krillin managed to locate the remaining Dragon Balls. I don't see any sign of any more Red Ribbon soldiers, Yamcha said, scanning the area. Yeah, Krillin added. I guess they all fled when they saw Kakarot knocking the tar out of their super soldier. Can you blame them? Bulma said as she joined the group, having come as soon as the fighting stopped. I wouldn't want to be on Kakarot's bad side either. Let's get this over with, Kakarot said, his gaze fixed on the gathered Dragon Balls. Arise, Shenron. The sky darkened, and lightning flashed all around. The lightning struck the Dragon Balls and took the form of a mighty dragon. You who have summoned me, Shenron said in a booming voice, speak your wish and it shall be granted. We wish for Upa's father, Bora, to be revived, Bulma stated firmly. It shall be done, Shenron said before disappearing, scattering the Dragon Balls to the far reaches of the globe. As the Dragon Balls began to scatter, Kakarot leapt up and caught one. Now, the boy said with a grin, if anyone wants to make a wish, they'll have to come see me first. So, where are you going now? Yamcha asked, turning to the young Saiyan. I figure I'll go back and hang out with Bulma, Kakarot said casually. Don't forget there's a tournament coming up in 3 years, Yamcha reminded him. I definitely want a rematch. So you're going back to train more with Master Roshi? Bulma asked. Yeah, I think there's still a lot I can learn from the old man, Yamcha said, then turned to Krillin. You want to come back with me? I could use someone to spar against. Sure, Krillin said, nodding. I'm not much of a match for Kakarot anyway. I may stand a better chance against you and Master Roshi. Sweat dripped down Kakarot's forehead as he finished his 10,000th push-up. Over the past few months, he had been training at Capsule Corp. Hey, strong guy, a voice interrupted his push-ups. Bulma walked into the room and smiled. She loved coming in and watching Kakarot train. How about you take a break for a little while, she suggested to the young Saiyan. Kakarot hopped to his feet and wiped the sweat off his brow with a towel. What did you have in mind? Oh, I don't know, Bulma started. We could go for a walk in the park and then get dinner. Kakarot's ears perked up at the mention of food. Yeah, he said eagerly. That sounds like fun. Then go take a shower and get some normal clothes on, and we'll go, Bulma said, smiling at the young Saiyan. 3 years passed quickly, and the day of the tournament soon arrived. Kakarot stretched as he exited the jet copter. Turning back to the vehicle, he grabbed the hand extended from inside and helped Bulma out of the jet copter. I wonder where everyone is, Bulma said, looking around. I'm not sure, Kakarot said, searching the crowd himself. I'm sure they'll turn up. Kakarot walked up to the registration desk. I'd like to enter the tournament, he told the attendant. All right, the man said, looking up from his clipboard. Can I get your name? Kakarot, the San stated flatly. Oh, the man said, his eyes widening. you're the returning champion. I remember seeing you fight in the last tournament. You were awesome. Thanks, Kakarot said with a grin. There you are, Master Roshi said, walking up behind Kakarot and Bulma. Yamcha and Krillin stood beside the old master, dressed in the traditional turtle school attire. Long time no see, Yamcha said, grinning. I hope you've been training hard these last few years. I've been doing some training, but not as much as I'd like, Kakarot replied, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. By not as much as he'd like, he means only about 10 hours a day, Bulma interjected, rolling her eyes playfully. What have you been doing with all your time then? Krillin asked, curious. Oh, Bulma said, blushing slightly, we've been hanging out and spending some time together. So, you guys are together now? Yamcha asked, raising an eyebrow. Bulma's blush deepened. It's not like that, she started to protest. Yes, Kakarot said bluntly, we're dating if that's what you're asking. Well, that ruins our fun, Krillin said with a chuckle. Yeah, it's only funny if he's embarrassed, Yamcha added, laughing. Well, a voice said from behind them. What have we here? The voice belonged to an old man in a martial arts uniform, adorned with a hat that had a giant crane on it. He was accompanied by 2 students, one tall and bald with 3 eyes, and the other short with a white painted face, both wearing similar uniforms. It looks like Roshi and his band of losers, the old man sneered. The only reason your pupil won the last tournament was because we weren't there. This year, we'll all be entering to beat you and your school once and for all. With that, the 3 turned and walked away. Who was that? Krillin asked, puzzled. That was Crane Hermit, Roshi replied. We were both students of the same teacher, but we had a falling out several years ago. What happened? Bulma asked, intrigued. Crane was a merciless opponent, Roshi explained. He'd stop at nothing to win. He abused his power over others and bullied people to get his way. But the real falling out came when his first student decided to use what he'd learned to become a murderer for hire. Wait, Kakarot said, realization dawning. Was his first student named Tao? Yes, Roshi confirmed. He was also Crane's younger brother. He was as ruthless as his master. Yeah. We ran into him a few years ago, Yamcha added. Really? Roshi asked, surprised. Yeah, Krillin replied. He was working for the Red Ribbon Army, and Kakarot knocked the tar out of him. This can't be good, Roshi said, his tone serious. Crane and his students won't rest until they get revenge for this. Are you ready for a tournament? The announcer said into the microphone, his voice booming through the arena. We have an all-star lineup for you today. The preliminary rounds had gone by quickly, with no big surprises. Our matchups will be as follows. Yamcha vs Tien, Pamput vs Master Roshi, Krillin vs Chiaotzu, Kakarot vs Master Shen. This promises to be a great tournament. Both the Turtle School and the Crane School have many members in this fight. Which school will come out on top? Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Our first match is about to begin. In one corner, we have a returning tournament participant, Yamcha. Facing off against Yamcha today is a member of the Crane School of Fighting and student of the Crane Hermit, Tien. Yamcha stood firm, eyeing his opponent, Tien, across the ring. The Triclops was stoic, his demeanor unreadable, making Yamcha's task of finding a weakness all the more difficult. It was clear that Tien was skilled, but just how skilled was yet to be revealed. Ready, fight, the announcer declared. In a flash, Yamcha and Tien dashed at each other, launching a flurry of kicks and punches. Each fighter skillfully blocked and dodged, neither gaining a clear advantage in the opening moments. Their fists moved like lightning, testing each other's defenses. After a few intense exchanges, they broke apart, both breathing a bit heavier. Not bad, Yamcha said, panting slightly, a hint of admiration in his voice. You're stronger than I expected, Tien admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. Given your training, I thought I could toy with you. Looks like I'll have to take this seriously. You talk too much, Yamcha shot back, a smirk on his face. You won't stand a chance against my Wolf Fang wind attack. Bring it on, Tien replied, bracing himself. Yamcha charged, his fists glowing with energy as he unleashed a rapid barrage of punches. Tien struggled to keep up with the speed and ferocity of the attack, eventually succumbing to the relentless blows. He was sent flying across the ring, landing hard on his back. Moments later, Tien got back on his feet, a small trickle of blood running from his mouth. I didn't expect any of Roshi's students to be this strong, Tien muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Is that all you've got? He called out, trying to mask his pain. I barely felt that. You're a terrible liar, Yamcha taunted. Let's see how you handle this, Tien said, clenching his fist. Multiform. With a shout, Tien's body split into 4 identical clones, each possessing a quarter of his original power. the four Tians moved to the corners of the ring, surrounding Yamcha and attacking from all sides. Kicks and punches came at Yamcha from every direction. He managed to block and dodge most, but some strikes began to land as his concentration was spread thin. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer exclaimed, "Tien has split himself into four and is attacking Yamcha from all directions. I need to do something," Yamcha thought, "or this won't end well." "Kamehameha," Yamcha shouted, sending a blue beam of energy at one of the Tiens. The blast sent the clone flying back, momentarily reducing the number of attackers. Now with 3 Tiens to contend with, Yamcha could better manage the onslaught. He dodged a punch from one Tien and countered with an elbow to the stomach, doubling the clone over. But before he could capitalize on the opening, another Tien was already on him, forcing Yamcha to dodge again. "It's time to finish this," Tien thought. All at once, all 4 Tiens brought their hands up to their faces. "Solar flare," they all shouted in unison. In an instant, a blinding light erupted, causing Yamcha to lose his vision. Taking full advantage, the teens pummeled the blinded warrior mercilessly. One of the teens delivered a powerful uppercut to Yamcha's stomach, sending him flying into the air. Before Yamcha could react, another Tien appeared above him, smashing him down with a double-fisted axe handle into the hard ground below. Tien quickly dropped the multiform technique and stood triumphantly above Yamcha, who was now lying motionless on the stage. Before Yamcha could muster the strength to get up, Tien dove down, driving his foot into Yamcha's leg with a sickening crunch, snapping the limb. "Well," the announcer said, his voice filled with concern, "it appears that Yamcha is unconscious and badly hurt. Being unable to continue the fight, Tien is the winner." Kakarot rushed onto the stage, kneeling beside his fallen friend. Checking Yamcha's pulse, he sighed in relief, realizing Yamcha was still breathing. "Ah, how sweet," Tien sneered. "The losers care about their teammates." Kakarot's eyes burned with fury as he glared at the Triclops. "You are going down when you face me," the young Saiyan declared. Tien laughed dismissively. "You really think so? If your friend couldn't beat me, what makes you think you can? I'm stronger, and I won't fall for your tricks," Kakarot replied firmly. "You will lose. You gained nothing from breaking his leg. Your dirty tactics won't help you win the tournament." A few hours later, Kakarot, Bulma, Krillin, and Master Roshi stood around Yamcha's hospital bed. The warrior now had his leg in a cast. "Are you okay?" Bulma asked, her voice full of concern. "I'll be all right," Yamcha said, wincing slightly. He turned to Kakarot. "Promise me you will beat him." "What about me?" Roshi interjected. "I'll fight him before Kakarot." "No offense, old man," Kakarot said with a smirk, "but I wiped the floor with you last time, and I'm almost twice as strong now. I'm more likely to beat him than you are." He turned to Yamcha, a small smile on his face. "I think this might make you feel better." He tossed a sensu bean to the ex-bandit. "Now, ladies and gentlemen," the announcer started, his voice rising with excitement. "Our next match is about to begin. In one corner, we have a man who needs no introduction. He's an action star and has won every tournament he's ever been in. You know him, you love him. It's Pamput. Facing off against Pamput is a legend in martial arts himself, who took second place in the last tournament before losing to one of his own students, Master Roshi. I'll make this quick," Pamput boasted confidently. "I won't waste more than 30 seconds of my time beating you. Ready? Fight!" the announcer declared, signaling the beginning of the match. Pamput charged at Roshi, unleashing a flurry of kicks and punches. However, the old martial arts master effortlessly dodged them all, showing no concern over the match. 30 seconds quickly passed with Pamput failing to land a single blow on Roshi. "I thought you were going to beat me in 30 seconds, Roshi teased, shooting a fist into Pamput's midsection. The prize fighter and action hero crumpled to the ground, unconscious. "Pamput is out cold," the announcer declared. "Master Roshi is the winner." "That was quick," Yamcha remarked, now seated in the stands with his friends. The sensu bean had completely healed his leg. "Yeah," Kakarot agreed beside him. "Was there ever any doubt who would win this one?" "Not really," Yamcha admitted with a chuckle. "Next up, we have Krillin versus Kaozu," the announcer called out. Krillin stood facing his opponent, who was the same size as him. He didn't know how strong Kaozu was and regretted not paying more attention to the other fighters' matches in the preliminaries. "Ready? Fight!" the announcer shouted. Kaozu floated a few inches off the ground and flew toward Krillin, launching a series of kicks and punches. Krillin blocked or dodged most of the blows with ease and shot his leg forward, connecting a hard kick to Chaozu's head and sending him reeling back in pain. "How's he so fast?" Tien muttered to himself. He knew Chaozu had been trying to end the fight quickly and hadn't been holding back much. Yet Krillin was unfazed. Chaozu picked himself up off the ground and dusted off his uniform. That last kick had hurt, and he hadn't seen it coming. Only Tien or the Crane Master had ever caught him off guard like that. He'd underestimated Master Roshi's students. Jolted back to reality, Kaozu saw Krillin charging with a punch ready. Quickly, he pushed his energy below him and floated high into the air to avoid the attack. Krillin looked up at Kaozu floating above the stage. He'd seen Kakarot use his energy to fly before but had never learned the technique himself. Now he wished he had. He knew he could beat Chaozu, but a jump attack was risky against an opponent who could fly. Dodon Ray, Chaozu shouted, sending a beam of yellow energy at Krillin. The young monk jumped out of the way with practiced ease. I see his plan, Krillin thought. He thinks he can stay up there and shoot at me like a fish in a barrel. That attack, Yamcha said to Kakarot, isn't that the same one Mercenary Tao used against you? Yeah, Kakarot replied, that's the one. What's that? Tien asked, overhearing their conversation. You fought Tao? Yeah, Kakarot said. He was working for the Red Ribbon Army and tried to kill me. Let's just say he was unsuccessful. So, you killed him? Tien asked, his voice tense. I don't know, Kakarot replied honestly. I defeated him the first time, and then he was modified into some kind of android. We fought again, and I hit him with a Kamehameha wave. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left. So you murdered him? Tien accused, his eyes narrowing. No, Kakarot corrected. We engaged in combat, and he lost. You should know the difference. Tien turned and floated away, clearly angry. Did I hear right? Roshi asked, coming closer. Did you really defeat Mercenary Tao? Yes, Kakarot confirmed. You heard right. I did defeat Tao. What's that got to do with anything? Yamcha asked, curious. Tao is Master Shen's brother, Roshi explained. And if you killed Tao, he and his pupils will stop at nothing to destroy you. They won't win, Kakarot said confidently, a grin spreading across his face. They aren't just going to try and win, Roshi cautioned. They'll want you dead. They won't succeed at that either, Kakarot said, his grin widening. Maybe they should ask Tao how that turned out for him. Back in the ring, another Dodon Ray shot at Krillin. The young monk jumped out of the way again and cupped his hands at his side. Me, ha, he shouted, sending a beam of blue energy up at Kaozu. Kaozu barely floated out of the way, but the moment of inattentiveness was all Krillin needed. He shot up into the air and brought a knee up under Kaozu's chin, sending him flying out of control. Krillin moved faster than the flying boy and came down with a double axe handle to the top of Kaozu's head, sending him crashing hard into the ground outside the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer said into the microphone, it appears that Krillin is the winner of this match. Later that night, after a Sen-sized dinner with Bulma and the rest of their friends, Kakarot lay sleeping. His match wasn't until the morning, and even Saiyan warriors needed rest. Suddenly, his eyes shot open. Something wasn't right. An instant later, a hand shot at him, intending to murder him in his sleep. Kakarot's hand shot up and grabbed the attacking hand. The owner of the hand was a ninja dressed entirely in black, covering everything but his eyes. Kakarot rolled to the side as another strike came from the mysterious warrior. Releasing the ninja's hand, Kakarot countered with a kick to the chest that sent the attacker flying through a window. The young Sen followed the ninja through the window and floated slowly down to the ground. By this time, the ninja was on his feet again and charging. Kakarot dodged a punch to his face and drove a knee into the assassin's stomach, doubling him over. The warrior collapsed in a heap. Kakarot walked over and pulled the mask off the ninja to reveal Master Shen. So you resort to killing me in my sleep? Kakarot asked, his voice cold. It's what you deserve, Shen spat. You killed my brother. I had no choice, Kakarot said calmly. It was him or me. So you might as well kill me now, Shen said, defiant despite his situation. No, Kakarot declared firmly, his voice steady and resolute. I'm not like you and your students. I've seen the damage people like you cause when they're in control. I've trained my whole life to stop people like you and your followers. I'm not going to kill you. But remember this, if you ever try to bully anyone else, and I find out, I will be there to stop you. Hidden in the bushes, Tien watched the scene unfold. Kakarot had easily bested Shen, and Tien had been ready to intervene. However, upon hearing Kakarot's words, he realized the young warrior wasn't going to kill Shen, just humiliate him. Deep in thought, Tien turned away and slowly walked off, pondering the implications of what he had just witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena, filled with excitement. Our next match is about to begin. Will the contestants please come to the stage? Kakarot stood on the stage, eagerly awaiting his next challenge. Will Master Shen please come to the stage? The announcer repeated. After a few minutes of waiting, the announcer continued. Since Master Shen is nowhere to be found, the winner of the match is Kakarot. What happened to Master Shen? Chaozu asked, confusion evident in his voice. I don't know, Tien replied, concealing the truth. I guess he didn't want to face us after what happened last night. he thought to himself. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer said once more, our next match will feature Tien, who dominated in his fight against Yamcha, against the great Master Roshi. Both are very accomplished fighters, but only one can move on to the finals. As Tien stepped into the ring to face Master Roshi, his mind raced. This was the man who had been a rival to his master. From childhood, Tien had been taught to dislike Roshi because his master harbored resentment against him. Even more troubling was the fact that Roshi had trained the boy who had killed his mentor, Tao. Yet, earlier, Tien had witnessed that same boy show mercy, allowing his own master, Shen, to escape in disgrace when he had every opportunity, and every right, to kill him. Let's begin, the announcer declared, signaling the start of the match. Tien pushed all distracting thoughts aside and charged at Roshi, launching a flurry of kicks and punches faster than most of the audience could follow. The elderly martial arts master effortlessly blocked or dodged every attack with the practiced ease that came from nearly a century of training. Not bad, Roshi remarked calmly, but your blind hatred interferes with your concentration. You have so much potential, yet you waste it following Shen's petty teachings. Shut up, old man, Tien roared, charging at Roshi with renewed intensity. His hard right fist connected with Roshi's face, sending the old man flying backward. Not relenting for a moment, Tien continued his relentless assault, pummeling Roshi with blow after blow before sending him crashing into the stage tiles. A few seconds later, Roshi was back on his feet, dusting off his fighting uniform. You are indeed strong, he acknowledged, his voice calm yet firm, but you still have a lot to learn about martial arts. I'll show you, Tien retorted, determination burning in his eyes. I know more than you think. There isn't a technique I can't master. I've even mastered your techniques. Ka, ma, ha, mi, ha. Roshi's eyes widened as he realized the Kamehameha wasn't aimed at him but at the crowd. Oh no, he thought. I have no choice. I either have to get in the way of the attack or let him harm innocents. And he knows it. Without hesitation, Roshi threw himself in front of the attack, crossing his arms to absorb the brunt of it. Seconds later, the smoke cleared, revealing Roshi still standing, albeit panting heavily. That was low, even for one of Shen's students, he said, breathing hard. Whatever works, Tien said with a smirk. So much potential, Roshi remarked, shaking his head. It's a shame you waste it. I could teach you a lot. Can it, old man? Tien snapped. Well, I've done all I can, Roshi muttered to himself. Now let's just hope some of it sinks in. He turned and walked towards the edge of the ring. Without stopping, he hopped down into the grass. It appears that Master Roshi has exited the ring, the announcer declared. That makes Tien the winner. Wow, Bulma said to Kakarot, eyes wide in surprise. Do you think Roshi gave up because he's afraid of Tien? No, Kakarot replied thoughtfully. They seemed about evenly matched. I think Roshi could have at least held his own. He quit to send a message. And what message would that be? Yamcha interjected, still angry from having his leg crushed earlier in his match with Tien. That what he was trying to say wasn't for personal gain, Kakarot explained. He didn't want Tien to think he was simply trying to distract him for a victory. He wanted Tien to be sure he meant every word he said. Are you ready for the next match? The announcer said to the crowd. On one side, we have Krillin, and on the other, we have Kakarot. These two are both students of the same master, but only one of them can leave here victorious. Kakarot stood across from Krillin, watching the other boy take on a fighting stance. Let's see what you can do, the Saiyan said with a grin. Krillin flashed a grin of his own. It had been nearly 3 years since the two had fought, and he had gotten much stronger. He had some surprises for the young Saiyan. Fight, the announcer declared. Krillin shot at Kakarot, throwing kicks and punches at blinding speed. Unfortunately for him, Kakarot blocked or dodged them all with practiced ease. Seconds later, the two separated, Krillin panting while Kakarot remained composed. He's still stronger than me, Krillin thought. No matter how strong I get, he's always stronger. I guess I'll have to try something sneaky. He cupped his hands at his side. Me, hey, he shouted, unleashing the beam at Kakarot. You really think that's going to work? Kakarot asked, a confident smirk on his face as the beam hurtled towards him. With a swift motion, he raised his hand and backhanded the beam into the sky, sending it safely away from the spectators. But much to his surprise, Krillin had moved behind him and was now gripping his tail tightly, squeezing with all his might. Do you really think that will work? Kakarot asked, unfazed. I eliminated that weakness long ago. With a swift movement, the young Sen brought his elbow down on Krillin's head, sending him crashing into the ring floor. Krillin slowly rose to his feet, wiping a trickle of blood from his mouth. I won't be defeated that easily, he shouted, determination burning in his eyes. So, You want to go all out then? Kakarot asked, a hint of excitement in his voice. You were holding back, Krillin asked, his eyes widening in shock. Sorry, but this is boring me, Kakarot replied nonchalantly. I'm going to finish it. With those words, Kakarot seemed to disappear from sight. In a blink, he reappeared in front of Krillin, driving a powerful punch into his gut, doubling him over. Kakarot followed up with a sharp chop to the back of Krillin's neck, dropping him to the floor. It appears that Krillin is down, the announcer said, starting the countdown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Krillin is down. Kakarot is the winner. Kakarot walked over and helped Krillin to his feet. No hard feelings, he said with a smile. It's okay, Krillin said, returning the smile. You're the better fighter. The night passed quickly and without incident. The next morning arrived, and it was time for the finals. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer said into the microphone, the moment you've all been waiting for has arrived. Tien and Kakarot will face off in the ring. Both fighters have breezed through their competition, and now we will see which one is the best. Tien stood across from Kakarot, staring down the young Saiyan. Just days before, the Triclops had wanted to kill the boy, but he had seen that Kakarot wasn't the ruthless killer his master had told him about. Initially driven by revenge, Tien now only wanted to prove himself the better fighter. Ready, fight, the announcer declared. In an instant, the two fighters shot at each other, exchanging kicks and punches at lightning speed. Kakarot's fist found its way into Tien's stomach, doubling the Triclops over. Kakarot followed up with a knee to Tien's face, sending him flying into a statue. The cement gave way under the impact, crumbling around Tien as he hit it. Seconds later, Tien crawled out from under the debris and stood, wiping blood from his mouth. Not bad, he said, his voice steady, but you don't stand a chance of winning this. I doubt that, Kakarot replied, a confident grin on his face. I'm just getting warmed up. Multi-form, Tien shouted, splitting into 4 identical copies of himself. All 4 Tiens charged at Kakarot, launching a coordinated barrage of punches and kicks, but none of their attacks landed. Kakarot lashed out with a swift kick, catching one of the Tiens in the face and causing it to fall to the ring and disappear. He then vanished, leaving only an afterimage for another Tien's fist to pass through as he reappeared behind the warrior. Bringing an axe handle down on the second Tien's head, he sent that one down to the ring to disappear as well. Realizing the futility of his strategy, the remaining Tien halted his attack, understanding that the multiform technique was useless against Kakarot. Not bad, Tien said, his voice tinged with admiration, but you won't be able to beat this one. I suggest you dodge if you want to live. He floated up into the air, forming a triangle with his hands as he concentrated his energy. Tri-BM ha! He shouted, unleashing an enormous amount of energy down at the young Saiyan. When the smoke cleared, the ring was completely destroyed, and Kakarot was nowhere to be seen. Where's Kakarot? Bulma asked, her voice trembling. He can't be gone, she continued, sniffling. Look, Roshi said, pointing up at the sky where Kakarot floated, staring down Tien. I see you decided to dodge, Tien said, his tone challenging. But you know now you can't win. When you hit the ground, you will go out of bounds. You're not the only one that can fly, Kakarot replied dryly. I can stay up here all day. We'll see who can stay up here longer then, Tien retorted, determination burning in his eyes. I think I'll finish this now, Kakarot said, gathering his energy. He shot towards Tien, throwing a punch aimed at his head. Tien barely managed to block the blow, grimacing from the impact. While he could use the air dancing technique to levitate his body, Kakarot had taken it a step further, exhibiting complete control in the air as well as on the ground. His thoughts were abruptly interrupted as Kakarot's knee slammed into his face, followed by an axe handle to his head, sending him hurtling into the grass below, creating a small crater upon impact. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the announcer declared. Kakarot has retained his title and is still the world champion. Kakarot floated to the ground and extended a hand to Tien. You did well, he said sincerely. You have a lot of good techniques. Maybe we could train together sometime. Despite his earlier resentment, Tien couldn't help but smile. As much as he hated the young Saiyan for what happened to Tao, he realized Kakarot wasn't the ruthless killer his master had described. Tao must have left him no choice. Sure, Tien agreed. Let's go get some food to celebrate, Yamcha suggested. That sounds good to me, Kakarot replied enthusiastically. He paused for a moment. Just let me run and get my armor and the Dragon Ball I've got in my locker first. It's all right, Bulma said with a wink. I'll grab it for you, lover boy. You've earned the rest. Kakarot grinned. Thanks, he said appreciatively. Minutes later, they were all seated in a restaurant, with Kakarot inhaling food like he hadn't eaten in years. Suddenly, the Saiyan's eyes widened. Bulma, he exclaimed, shooting up from the table mid-bite. leaving the food and his friends behind. What's with him? Krillin asked, puzzled. I don't know, Yamcha said, but he seemed serious. Let's follow him. Kakarot arrived at the locker he had rented to find a horrifying sight. Bulma lay on the floor in a pool of blood. No, Kakarot yelled, dropping to his knees beside her. Bulma, talk to me. The girl remained lifeless, her face pale and motionless. Is she all right? A voice said from behind Kakarot. The young Sen turned to face the tournament announcer, his eyes burning with fury and desperation. What happened? Kakarot demanded, his voice trembling with emotion. A monster came, the announcer said, his voice trembling. It confronted the girl and demanded something. When she refused, it killed her and took off with some kind of ball and a list of all the martial artists. The Dragon Ball, Kakarot muttered, clenching his fist. I'll avenge you, Bulma, he vowed, looking down at her lifeless body. Then I'll wish you back with the Dragon Balls. He checked Bulma's pockets for the Dragon Radar but noticed it was missing. What happened? Roshi asked as he and the rest of the gang entered the area, their faces filled with concern. They froze upon seeing Bulma's body. She's dead, Kakarot said, his voice filled with sorrow and anger. What's this? Chaozu said, picking up a piece of paper with a strange symbol on it. Roshi glanced at the paper and paled. It's King Piccolo. Who's King Piccolo? Tien asked, his curiosity piqued. It's a long story, Roshi said, his voice heavy with dread. The old master began to recount the tale of King Piccolo, the malevolent demon who once terrorized the world. When Master Roshi had finished telling of King Piccolo's defeat, he sighed deeply. After my master trapped King Piccolo with the evil containment wave, I thought he was gone for good, but it appears he is back again. Kakarot, now fully dressed in his armor, adjusted the scouter on his eye. Well, he won't be around for long, he declared. I will finish what your master started. Wait, Roshi said urgently, you're still weak from your fight with Tien. You can't face King Piccolo like this. No offense, Kakarot said, glancing at Tien, but I barely broke a sweat in that fight. He reached into the pouch at his side, pulling out a senzu bean and popping it into his mouth. But I'll take this just to be sure. Kakarot clicked his scouter, scanning the surroundings for power levels. Several strong ones were moving away from the area, which didn't surprise him since most of the planet's best fighters had attended the tournament. He wished the beast that had killed Bulma hadn't taken the Dragon Radar too. That little device would have made it much easier to track down his girlfriend's killer. The young Sen grimaced, frustrated at not having a clear lead, and took off after the closest of the retreating powers. King Piccolo sat atop a giant throne in Emperor Pilaf's airship. Before him stood the little blue emperor and his two lieutenants, Chao and Mai. Has Tambourine returned yet? Piccolo asked. He should be back soon, Pilaf replied. There's a Dragon Ball headed our way. Excellent, King Piccolo said, a sinister grin spreading across his face. Soon, everything will be as it should. Your Excellency, Pilaf started nervously, since I have fished you out of the sea and freed you, when you used the Dragon Balls to rule the world, I was wondering if I could have half. The little emperor hesitated, aware of how powerful King Piccolo was rumored to be. I mean, a third, or a quarter, or some nice swamp ground somewhere. You fool, Piccolo said, ignoring the little emperor's antics. I don't need the Dragon Balls to rule this pathetic planet. Then what are you going to use them for? Pilaf asked, his curiosity piqued. I will wish for eternal youth, Piccolo answered. I will rule this planet for all eternity. Before Piccolo could continue detailing his plan, Tambourine entered holding the 4-star Dragon Ball. So, you have returned, Piccolo said. Yes, my master, Tambourine replied. I have one of the Dragon Balls and a device to track down more of them. Excellent, Piccolo said. Did you get the list of the martial artists as well? Yes, master, Tambourine confirmed. I have the list. Excellent, Piccolo continued. Then your task is to hunt down and destroy these fighters. Sire, Piano interrupted. Would it not be wiser to hunt down the Dragon Balls first? You aren't getting any younger, after all. You are correct, Piccolo acknowledged. With this little device, it won't take long at all to find the Dragon Balls. We also have a bigger version of that on our ship, Pilaf interjected eagerly. Then I shall need 2 more servants, Piccolo declared. My master, Piano interjected cautiously. Are you sure you are strong enough to create 2 more servants? It matters not, Piccolo said dismissively. When I have the Dragon Balls, I will be forever young. With that, Piccolo started concentrating. A few seconds later, his throat convulsed, and 2 eggs emerged from his mouth. When the eggs hatched, 2 winged creatures that looked Namekian in nature but horribly mutated emerged. I will call them Cymbal and Drum, Piccolo said. Now go and find the Dragon Balls for your master. Kill any who get in your way. Kakarot landed outside a martial arts dojo, his eyes scanning the area intently. He had been tracking large power levels for the past 2 days but still hadn't found Bulma's killer. His heart ached with each fruitless search. On his last stop, he had found the lifeless body of Bacterium. The stench was unforgettable from the last tournament. It was becoming clear that Piccolo was trying to eliminate any possible threats. Kakarot walked into the dojo, his heart heavy with dread. The scene was all too familiar. King Chappa, one of his past opponents, lay dead surrounded by his students. Checking his scouter again, he saw a high power level moving away. This one has to be it, he thought. Without hesitation, he took to the air, shooting out in hot pursuit. Tambourine smiled as he landed in the middle of a big boxing ring, relishing in his work. His latest target had just finished a match against a weaker opponent. The name on the sheet was Pamput, a boxer turned movie star. Tambourine dove at the boxer with a killing strike, eager to add another name to his list. Before the strike could land, an arm stopped Tambourine's attack. The arm belonged to another fighter, one Tambourine recognized as the two-time champion of the World Martial Arts Tournament. The monster's smile widened. Defeating this fighter would surely bring him great reward from his master. He swung his other fist, aiming to strike the interloper in the face and end this quickly. Kakarot caught the monster's fist and grinned. "You'll pay for what you did to Bulma," he said, his voice low and filled with anger. "Ah yes," Tambourine sneered. "The girl at the tournament. Her screams were delightful as I ended her pathetic life. You'll suffer for that," Kakarot growled, driving a fist into Tambourine's stomach. The beast doubled over in pain, a sensation he had never experienced before. It dawned on him that he might be messing with the wrong person. Kakarot brought his knee up, smashing it into Tambourine's face and sending the monster sliding across the ring. The Sen didn't let up for a second. He shot forward, grabbing the monster and throwing him high into the air. "This is for Bulma," he shouted, cupping his hands and launching a Kamehameha wave at the monster. The beam hit Tambourine with crushing force, melting through his skin and severing vital organs. Kakarot sighed heavily. He had avenged his love, but the real threat, the one who had unleashed this monster, was still out there. He hit the button on his scouter, scanning the area. No power levels in the immediate vicinity seemed significant. "I guess all I can do is wait," he thought, frustration gnawing at him. Piccolo felt a sudden jolt as Tambourine's life force faded away. The Namekian staggered, momentarily thrown off by his minion's abrupt death. "Tambourine's dead," he muttered. "We need to hurry." "It's okay, Master," Piano reassured him. "Drum is on his way back with the last Dragon Ball. There's nothing to stop you from making your wish." As if on cue, Drum entered the airship, clutching the final Dragon Ball. "Excellent," Piccolo said, his voice filled with anticipation. "Put the ship down. I have a wish to make." "Right away, Your Excellency," Pilaf said, ordering the ship to land. Minutes later, King Piccolo stepped out of the ship with Cymbal and Drum at his side. He scattered the 7 Dragon Balls at his feet and raised his arms. "Arise, dragon," Piccolo commanded, "and grant me my wish." The sky darkened, lightning flashed, and one of the bolts struck the Dragon Balls, transforming into the mighty dragon, Shenron. "You who have summoned me," Shenron boomed, "I will grant you one wish." "I wish to be eternally young," Piccolo shouted, his voice echoing with excitement. "It shall be done," Shenron replied. With a flash of light, Piccolo transformed from a frail old creature into a young and powerful Namekian warrior. Before Shenron could disappear, Piccolo shot a blast at the dragon, destroying it and ensuring no one else could make another wish. "Now no one can stop me," he laughed, the sound chilling and triumphant. Kakarot watched the news on the television at Master Roshi's house. After failing to locate anything with his scouter, he decided it would be more efficient to wait for Piccolo to reveal himself, rather than flying all over looking for him. If Piccolo had sent Tambourine to finish off the martial artists, he would eventually come here to attack the Turtle Hermit. Either that, or something would appear on the news about the monster. From what Roshi had told him, it was unlikely Piccolo would remain hidden for long. "We interrupt this regularly scheduled program for some breaking news," a voice announced from the TV. "People of Earth," Piccolo's voice boomed as the picture on the TV switched to show the now youthful Namekian. "There is a new world order. My order. Murder is no longer illegal. It is encouraged. Rape, theft, assault, battery, and pillaging will be the norm of the day. All will answer to my rule. Anyone who tries to stop me will be destroyed." Kakarot turned away from the TV and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Roshi asked, his voice filled with concern. "He was in the capital," Kakarot said, "in Chao Palace. I'm going to go stop him." "Alone?" Roshi inquired, worry etched in his features. "Yes," Kakarot said firmly. "I don't think any of you are strong enough to stop him." "I'll go with you," Krillin offered. "We can fight together." Kakarot's scouter suddenly beeped, detecting 2 power levels heading their way fast. Both were equal to Tambourine's. The Saiyan laughed, a hint of excitement in his voice. "No, stay here," Kakarot said. There's trouble headed this way. By the looks of it, it's two of Piccolo's minions. You, Tien, and Yamcha should be able to handle them. I'm going after Piccolo. Are you sure you're strong enough? Yamcha asked, his voice tinged with doubt. I've scanned as far as my scouter will reach for the highest power level I can find and haven't found one higher than mine, Kakarot replied, his determination evident. If you get too bored after taking out Piccolo's freaks, then you can follow, but I'm going to end this now. Cymbal and Drum landed on Roshi's island, their eyes narrowing as they saw 4 fighters standing in front of the house. One of the fighters glanced their way before shooting into the air, leaving the other 3 in fighting stances. Piccolo had sent the 2 monsters out together after Tambourine failed to return, starting with the most powerful fighters. They had not expected to find 4 of the strongest warriors in one place. One of these fighters had probably killed Tambourine. Before Cymbal and Drum could organize an attack, Krillin shot forward with a swift kick, sending Cymbal flying back into the sea. Drum retaliated with a kick of his own at Krillin but was knocked out of the air by Yamcha's powerful fist. How about you play with me? Yamcha taunted. Tien simply stood and observed the 2 battles. While Yamcha was not as skilled as he was, both the bandit and Krillin were stronger. Besides, he would intervene if needed. No reason not to let his friends get some good practice. Cymbal shot up from the water and lunged at Krillin with a fierce punch. I'll kill you, he shouted, but his fist only struck an afterimage. Krillin reappeared behind the monster and brought a powerful axe-handle blow down on Cymbal's head, sending him crashing back into the depths of the ocean. Drum unleashed a flurry of kicks and punches at Yamcha, but the bandit skillfully dodged every blow. Kakarot had been right. These monsters weren't as strong as they had feared. In fact, they were pretty weak compared to himself and Krillin. Yamcha's brief moment of overconfidence cost him as Drum's clawed fist connected with his face, sending him flying back. Rolling with the blow, Yamcha shot back at Drum and delivered a powerful punch to the beast's face. It was time to stop fooling around. Wolf Fang Fist, he shouted, unleashing a barrage of rapid blows that cracked Drum's bones with each strike. When the attack was over, Drum collapsed in a heap, motionless. He's dead, Tien said, walking up behind Yamcha. Good work. We should help Krillin, Yamcha suggested. I don't think he'll need it, Tien replied, watching Krillin closely. Krillin concentrated, forming a ball of energy in his hand. He had conceived this attack a while ago but hadn't found the right opportunity to use it. It wasn't suited for a tournament, as it was incredibly lethal if executed correctly. He spun his arm in a circle above his head, watching as the energy ball flattened and began spinning like a disc. Destructo Disc, he shouted, hurling the spinning disc at Cymbal as the monster rose from the ocean. The disc hit Cymbal in the arm, cutting deeply into the flesh before dissipating. Krillin sighed. His attack wasn't perfected yet, but he was making progress. At least it had cut into something this time. A voice interrupted Krillin's musings. Tri-beam ha, Tien shouted, engulfing the monster in a wave of golden energy that permanently ended Cymbal's existence. Sorry, Tien said, walking up to Krillin. I figured Kakarot may need us even if he says he doesn't, and I couldn't let you toy around with this one all day, but that was a good attack. When it's perfected, I'd hate to be on the receiving end of it. Thank, Krillin said, smiling appreciatively. Kakarot landed outside of Chao Palace, his eyes blazing with determination. Piccolo, he shouted, come out and face me. A moment later, the tall Namekian emerged, a sinister grin spreading across his face. So, you're the one who killed Tambourine? Yes, that would be me, Kakarot replied, his voice steady. And now I'm going to kill you for what your minion did to Bulma. You don't know what you're dealing with, Piccolo boasted, his confidence unshaken. I know you think you're strong, but you stand no chance against me. Kakarot pressed a button on his scouter. 260, he said, laughing. I think it's you who has no idea who you're dealing with. Piccolo laughed menacingly. I've terrorized this planet for years, boy, he said. His rant was abruptly interrupted as he doubled over in pain. Cymbal and Drum had just been destroyed. But how? The Demon King had no time to ponder as Kakarot's fist collided hard with his face, sending him flying across the courtyard. Several bystanders around the palace cheered as Kakarot knocked Piccolo through a wall. Shut up! The Demon King shouted, sending a blast at the onlookers. Kakarot appeared before the blast and swatted them away effortlessly. Your fight's with me, he said, charging back at Piccolo and unleashing a flurry of kicks and punches. Each blow landed with devastating force. Kakarot continued the onslaught, beating the demon mercilessly. Purple blood sprayed from Piccolo's mouth as Kakarot buried his fist in the Demon King's stomach. Now to finish you off, Kakarot said, cupping his hands at his side. Piccolo knew this was the end. The boy was simply too powerful for him to defeat. He hadn't thought it was possible, but he was about to die. Desperately, he focused all his energy into creating one last egg. This egg would contain his entire essence, ensuring his legacy would continue. Me, hey, Kakarot shouted, putting all his energy into the blast that would end the Demon King's short reign. Piccolo spit out the egg, sending it as far as he could with a final message: kill Kakarot, before the blue beam overtook him. Kakarot sighed in relief. It was over. Now all he had to do was revive Bulma, and everything would be back to normal. Kakarot landed back on Roshi's island. After the fight with Piccolo, he had located the dragon radar among the few items the demon had left behind. Unfortunately, nothing was showing up on the radar. Someone must have made a wish. Now he would have to wait a year before he could wish Bulma back. The Saiyan sighed and walked toward the house, a mix of exhaustion and determination in his step. "You're back," Tien said as Kakarot entered the house. "You're all over the news as the one who killed Piccolo. It's amazing how strong you are." "Yes, Kakarot is quite an amazing fighter," a voice said from behind Kakarot. "He's my most promising student, after all." Kakarot turned to see Korin standing in the doorway. "What brings you here?" he asked. "You're not one to leave your tower, I know," Korin replied, his voice calm yet serious. "I need to get an errand boy, but getting to why I'm here. Kakarot, Kami wants you to come and train with him." "Kami?" Yamcha asked, eyes widening. "As in the Guardian of Earth?" "Yes, that would be the one," Korin confirmed. "Sorry," Kakarot said, shaking his head, "but I have other things to do. I have to wish Bulma back." "Kami said it was very important," Korin insisted. "Besides, when Piccolo made his wish, he destroyed the eternal," Kakarot exclaimed, his eyes wide with shock. "Kami is the only one who can revive the eternal dragon," Korin explained. "You'll have to go and see him on his lookout if you want to wish back your girlfriend." Kakarot tossed the dragon radar to Yamcha. "If the Dragon Balls become active, gather them, and wish Bulma back." "Sure thing," Yamcha replied, catching the radar. Hours later, Kakarot stood at the top of Korin's tower. "So, where's this Kami?" he asked, looking around. "Well, if you go straight up from this tower, high up into the air, you'll find Kami's lookout," Korin replied, pointing upwards. Without further conversation, Kakarot jumped out of the tower and shot high up into the air, flying toward where Kami's lookout was supposed to be. After a long flight, Kakarot landed on top of a floating bowl-shaped platform in the sky. "This must be Kami's lookout," he thought. "Well, I suppose I should find this Kami." He walked forward and soon saw a black genie floating on a magic carpet. "Hi," the genie greeted warmly. "I'm Mr. Popo. Kami has been expecting you." "Where is he?" Kakarot asked, anxious to get the Guardian to bring the dragon back so he could wish back Bulma. "Before you can see Kami," Popo said calmly, "you need to pass a test." "Test?" Kakarot asked, eyebrows raised. "What test?" "You have to hit Mr. Popo," Popo replied with a small smile. Kakarot pressed a button on his scouter. 300, he said. "Not bad, but this won't be much of a challenge." Kakarot charged at the genie, but before his fist could land, Popo disappeared and reappeared behind him, landing a light punch to the back of Kakarot's head. The blow didn't have enough force to actually hurt the Saiyan, but it still surprised him. Kakarot turned and started throwing a flurry of kicks and punches at the genie, but Popo managed to dodge every blow with ease. "How?" Kakarot asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Your attacks are clumsy," Popo replied calmly. "Your movements are obvious. You give yourself away before you strike." Kakarot grimaced and renewed his attack with more determination than before. Unfortunately for the young Saiyan, Popo still remained ahead of the attacks, effortlessly dodging and countering each one. "You must be as calm as the air but quicker than lightning," Popo said, his voice serene and composed. "What does that mean?" Kakarot asked, furrowing his brow in confusion. "You must clear your head and see my movements with more than just your eyes," Popo explained. "Then you will begin to anticipate my movements. You must move in an efficient manner, wasting no energy." Kakarot nodded, finally understanding the genie's words. He closed his eyes and cleared his mind. In his mind's eye, he could almost see Popo standing before him. He breathed deeply and waited for the right moment. A split second later, his arm shot out, striking Popo in the stomach and doubling the genie over. "Very good," a voice said from the shadows. Moments later, a tall Namekian emerged. He looked almost exactly like King Piccolo. Kakarot realized this wasn't Piccolo. "Must be Kami," he said. "Yes," Kami replied, nodding. "I see you have surpassed my expectations. I didn't expect you to be able to touch Popo for quite some time." "It's not much different from the training with Korin," Kakarot said, "although I think Popo can almost read my mind and anticipate my movements." "You are correct," Kami said. "He can read your movements before you make them if you think too much. He can also sense where you are by feeling your energy." I can teach you to do all of these things, but you must promise me something first. What's that? Kakarot asked, curious. You must promise to remain here and train with me for the next 3 years, Kami said, his tone serious. And you must use what you learn here to be Earth's protector. I'm tempted, Kakarot said, considering the offer. But all I'm here for is to get the Dragon Balls fixed so I can wish back a friend. I will fix the dragon if you stay here and train, Kami said firmly. Your friends can wish back Bulma. Why are you so interested in my training? Kakarot asked, his curiosity piqued. You have great potential, Kami said. There is also a threat that will appear in 3 years. It will manifest at the next World Martial Arts Tournament. Piccolo? Popo interjected. No, Kami replied, shaking his head. While Piccolo did have an offspring, I am not concerned with that. Kakarot, through normal training, will be more than strong enough to keep Piccolo in check. The threat I am talking about is much more powerful. He turned to Kakarot. I believe it will be a henchman of the one you call Frieza. What do you know of Frieza? Kakarot asked, his interest intensifying. Not much more than you do, honestly, Kami admitted. I know that he destroyed your people and your father sent you to Earth to escape their fate. I believe you may have been discovered by one of Frieza's spies. From what I can glean of the future, he will send a warrior to this planet with orders to find and destroy you. How strong is he? Kakarot asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. I honestly don't know, Kami replied. My powers as guardian sometimes let me see threats coming, but not very clearly. What is known is that if you are to protect this planet, you need to start reaching your true potential. I have designed a training program, taking your heritage into account. So, I will once again ask if you will stay up here and train for the next 3 years, Kakarot grimaced. While he desperately wanted to see Bulma again, he knew it was his responsibility to protect this planet, especially if Frieza was involved. If what the Guardian said was true, he had led the threat here. All right, he finally said. I'm in. Good, Kami said. Popo, fetch the dragon model so it can be repaired. Kakarot focused his mind, drawing inward in deep meditation. For the past year, he had been training up on Kami's lookout. Most of the training had been more mentally than physically challenging. That didn't surprise the young Saiyan since he was already stronger than both the Guardian and his servant. At first, Kakarot had wanted to continue sparring with Mr. Popo, but Kami had said the boy needed to focus inward before he could truly become powerful outward. A presence appeared behind him. The person was absolutely silent, but Kakarot had learned to sense energy, so it was no surprise when Popo spoke. Kami has a new test for you. Kakarot's eyes shot open, and he rose to his feet. Test? He asked. Kami thinks you are mentally ready to start the next phase of your training, Popo replied. We will be going into the pendulum room. What's the pendulum room? Kakarot asked, curiosity piqued. It is a room that bends the fabric of space and time, Popo explained. Inside it are shadows of the past and present from many different places in the universe. So it's a portal somewhere? Kakarot asked. Sort of, Popo replied. You will not physically leave, but your spirit will be transported to a new destination to fight an opponent. It will seem like you are there, and if you get hit, you will feel the blows as if they were real. So, who am I fighting? Kakarot asked, excitement building. I figured we'd start with a member of your own race, Kami said, approaching Kakarot and Popo. A Saiyan? Kakarot said, his excitement growing. Yeah, Kami confirmed. Let's get started then, Kakarot said, genuine excitement in his voice. He followed Popo and Kami into a strange room with clocks all over the floor, walls, and ceiling. Minutes later, Popo and Kami exited and closed the door. Lights flashed, and the landscape around Kakarot warped into an arid wasteland. In the distance, Kakarot could sense several large power levels, but one seemed much closer. What have we here? A gruff voice said from behind Kakarot. Why aren't you with your mission team? Kakarot turned to see a tall man wearing armor similar to his own. The armor was white with red shoulder and thigh pads. A scouter covered his eye, and his black spiky hair stuck out in all directions, reaching his shoulders. Unlike Kakarot's shorter hair, the man's tail was wrapped neatly around his waist, just like Kakarot's. I'm just exploring, Kakarot said in response to the man's question. You filthy whelp, the large Saiyan sneered. I'll teach you to disobey orders. The man's fist shot at Kakarot faster than anything he had ever seen. Kakarot barely dodged the first blow, but he wasn't as lucky with the next one. The Saiyan's knee slammed into Kakarot's gut, causing him to spit out blood involuntarily. Kakarot gasped at the pain. He had never been hit so hard in his life, but he had been hit before and knew he had to respond. While the older Saiyan was still laughing, Kakarot put all his energy into an uppercut and caught the man square on the chin. The man's head tilted upwards, but he was otherwise unaffected. Kakarot cursed at the ineffectiveness of his blow. How strong is this guy? He thought. Before he could think any further, the Saiyan was throwing a flurry of kicks and punches at him. Kakarot cleared his mind and focused on blocking the incoming attacks. He managed to block some, but the blows were too numerous and too fast to anticipate them all. Soon enough, one landed hard on his face, sending him sprawling across the landscape into a cliff face. Kakarot pulled himself from the rubble and charged back at the larger Sen, shooting an energy-enhanced fist at his stomach. The blow was caught before it could land. The man grinned as he squeezed Kakarot's fist, producing a satisfying crunch. Kakarot winced in pain as his hand was crushed. The Saiyan never let up, continuing to beat him mercilessly until everything went dark. Kakarot awoke on the floor of the pendulum room, sweating and sore. Everything had felt so real in there. He quickly examined himself and found that nothing was broken. "You did well," Kami said, entering the room. "That's not surprising," Kami replied calmly. "After all, the opponent you were fighting was nearly 3 times stronger than you." "What?" Kakarot exclaimed. "How was I supposed to win against someone so strong?" "You weren't," Kami said. "The point of this exercise was to show you what it's like to fight someone stronger than you." Kami cleared his throat before continuing. "You haven't run into that much on this planet. No one here can challenge you to the extent needed. So you want me to keep training in here?" Kakarot asked. "No," Kami said. "The point of this exercise was to test your skills and to make you understand that there are beings out there much stronger than you." That was a low-class Saiyan warrior. "There are many out there who are much stronger than the one you faced." "Like Frieza," Kakarot said, his voice filled with icy determination. "Yes," Kami began, his voice heavy with the weight of the universe. "Frieza is unimaginably strong. He wiped out the entire Saiyan race, beings mostly stronger than the one you faced, without any effort." Kami's intense gaze locked onto Kakarot's eyes. "The point of this exercise is to make you understand what we're up against. Any one of Frieza's men could be as strong, or even stronger, than the warrior you fought. So you want me to keep training in there until I can beat him, right?" Kakarot asked, a determined spark in his eye. "No," Kami replied calmly. "If you haven't noticed, the pendulum room has little effect on the physical world." Kakarot's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Remember when you were beaten by Android Tao?" Kami prompted. "When you healed from that, you were much stronger." Kakarot nodded. "Yes, it's a Saiyan trait. We get stronger after every battle. Yet, you fought a much stronger opponent in the pendulum room and did not get any stronger," Kami stated, watching the realization dawn on Kakarot's face. Understanding flooded through Kakarot. Since the pendulum room wasn't real, his power hadn't increased from the fight, even though he'd been nearly beaten to death. "I see," he murmured. "So," Kami continued, "I want you to keep focusing your mind with Mr. Popo, but you need to increase your training. Are you familiar with the multiform technique?" "Somewhat," Kakarot replied. "Tien used it against me in the last tournament, but it didn't work because each copy was weaker. Even when they teamed up, I could easily keep up with them." "Yes," Kami said, "but I want you to use that technique to be your own opponent when you spar. Popo and I cannot keep up with you, but if you spar with the multiform, you will have an opponent of equal strength. It may not be enough to fully challenge your Saiyan heritage, but it will give you a decent challenge." Kakarot nodded, his resolve clear. "All right, I'll get on it." "Wait," Kami said, stopping him. Kakarot turned to see Mr. Popo presenting him with a new fighting uniform. "What's this?" he asked, curious. "This is what you'll wear for training from now on," Kami explained. Kakarot picked up the fighting clothes, inspecting the green jumpsuit that looked just like the one Master Roshi had given him, except for the symbol on the back. Instead of Roshi's emblem, it bore Kami's symbol. The real difference was the undershirt, wristbands, and boots. Kakarot staggered as Popo handed them to him. They were incredibly heavy. "Ah, smell that fresh air," Roshi exclaimed as he exited the car at the World Martial Arts Tournament. "Much better than being cooped up on that plane." "I agree, Master," Grandpa Gohan said, following the old turtle hermit. "I can't wait to see Kakarot compete this year," he continued enthusiastically. "I wish I had made it to the last 2 tournaments." "It's okay," Roshi assured him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I'm sure Kakarot knew you were rooting for him. I would have been here if I'd known he was entering." "News travels slow where I live," Grandpa Gohan admitted, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "Well, maybe if you'd stay in touch more often, you wouldn't be 6 years out of date." Roshi scolded his former student, shaking his head. "Boys, please," Bulma interrupted as she climbed out of the car behind them. She was tired of the constant bickering and Roshi's attempts to grope her. More than anything, she hoped to see Kakarot again, not only because of the longing in her heart and her loins, but also to have someone young and not perverted to talk to. She hoped the young Sen hadn't forgotten about her. Dying and coming back to life had been hard enough. At the young age of 20, she didn't know if she could handle being abandoned by her lover. Her thoughts were interrupted by a pair of hands covering her eyes. "Guess who?" said a voice that was both familiar and new at the same time. The hands were strong and calloused, the arms muscular. Bulma knew instantly who it was. "You're back," she whispered, spinning around. Instead of the familiar face she expected, she was met with a massive chest covered by a green gi and a black undershirt. She looked up, realizing her mistake. Kakarot now stood a full head taller than her and had grown even more handsome over the past 3 years. He was no longer the boy she remembered. He was now a man. Before she could finish, Kakarot placed a finger on her trembling lips. "I've missed you too," he said softly. "I never stopped thinking about you while I was training with Kami. I wish I could have come back sooner, but..." Bulma stopped him this time. "I understand," she said. "Krillin told me you were called to train with Kami. I figured it must be important if the Guardian of Earth wanted to see you." "Yes, it was very serious," Kakarot replied, his tone deadly serious. Then his face softened into a smile. "But now that we're together again, there's something I must do." The young Saiyan dropped to one knee and pulled a small box from his gi. "Bulma, my love, when I lost you, I didn't know if I could go on. My only thought was getting you back. I swear that I will never let anything happen to you again. I want to be with you always. Will you be my wife?" Bulma's face showed her shock, but it quickly melted into a smile. She extended her hand, allowing Kakarot to place the ring on her finger. "Of course I will," she said, pulling him to his feet and planting a deep kiss on her long-lost lover. Several minutes later, after the initial shock of the proposal had worn off, Kakarot and Bulma walked arm in arm up to the registration booth, followed closely by Roshi and Grandpa Gohan. "I'd like to sign up to compete," Kakarot told the attendant. "Why, of course sir," the attendant replied. "Can I have your name?" "Kakarot," the young Sen said confidently. "The returning champion, Kakarot?" the attendant asked, eyes wide with surprise. "Yes," Kakarot confirmed with a nod. "Of course sir," the attendant said, looking a bit sheepish. "It's just that you're much taller than you were 3 years ago." Kakarot grinned. "Quite all right." He then turned to Roshi and Grandpa Gohan. "So, you old-timers going to compete?" "No," Roshi said with a chuckle. "I'm content just to watch. I didn't really stand much of a chance 3 years ago against you. I doubt I'd even be in the same league as you after your training with Kami." Grandpa Gohan nodded as well. "I haven't seen you fight in years, my boy. But if you're as strong as Master Roshi says, I wouldn't stand a chance at all against you. I'll be content to watch as well." "It's all right, boys," Bulma said with a smile. "You can root for Kakarot from the front row with me." "Where are Yamcha and Krillin?" Kakarot asked, looking at Master Roshi. "Weren't they training?" "They only stayed around long enough to gather the Dragon Balls, and wish Bulma and all the fighters that Piccolo killed back to life. Then they went off with Tien and Kaozu to train on their own. It was just as well. There wasn't much more I could teach them anyway. They have also surpassed my teachings." As if summoned by the conversation, 4 blurs swept by before coming to a sudden halt. In the space, empty a second ago, now stood Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, and Kaozu. "Hey fellas," Yamcha said cheerfully. "Long time no see." "Hey guys," Kakarot said, greeting his friends with a big smile. "You've definitely gotten taller," Yamcha said, looking up at the man who had replaced the kid he'd known. "And here I thought I'd be the tall one," Krillin joked. The night passed quickly and uneventfully, filled with laughter and catching up with old friends. Soon, it was time for the preliminary rounds of the tournament. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer said enthusiastically, "our attendance is much smaller than it was last year due to some unpleasantness after the last tournament, but I'm sure the caliber of fighters we have this year will make up for the dwindling numbers." Kakarot looked around the arena, surveying the other fighters. He noticed several weak fighters milling around the room, but soon his attention focused on 2 fighters. One was a tall green alien with pointy ears, wearing a turban and cape, with a permanent scowl on his face. He was the spitting image of King Piccolo. Kami had filled him in on how the demon had created a spawn before being destroyed. He had also mentioned that he and the demon spawn were linked. If Piccolo Jr. was destroyed, Kami would also be destroyed. Kakarot didn't know how he was going to stop him and still keep the Guardian of Earth safe. A second later, Kakarot's attention was drawn to another fighter standing in the corner, looking around. This fighter was a darker green than Piccolo and had the head of an alligator. He wore a simple black fighting uniform and stared at Kakarot with anticipation. "We'll begin by drawing numbers," the announcer said. "The fighters will face off in single elimination combat. The 2 winners from each bracket will advance to the finals." "Chaozu," Tien whispered. "Make sure none of us fight each other until the finals." "All right, Tien," the little emperor replied, using his telepathic powers to fix the numbers in the box. The preliminary rounds had been fairly uneventful for the first several fights. Chaozu stepped into the ring for his 3rd fight of the preliminaries, his heart sinking when he saw his opponent. Standing across from him was none other than Mercenary Tao. The man looked more machine than human with replacement eyes, arms, and legs. "So, we meet again," Traitor, Tao sneered. As soon as the bell rang, the assassin shot at Chaozu with lightning speed, striking the young fighter with unparalleled ferocity. The little emperor was down, unmoving, with the first blow. No, Chaozu, Tian shouted, seeing his friend go down. Don't worry, he's not dead, Tao said, walking down from the ring. I would be disqualified if he were to die, but rest assured, after I humiliate you in the tournament, I will finish all of you off. I'll get you for that, Tian swore, his eyes burning with rage. We'll see, Tao replied with a smirk. I thought he was dead, Krillin commented, looking shocked. I thought so too, Kakarot said. Apparently, he's pretty durable. You think he's gotten stronger? Yamcha asked, eyeing Tao suspiciously. I don't know, Kakarot said. I can't read him very much. Even the scouter couldn't get anything on him last time. It must be the mechanical parts interfering. Kakarot grimaced, wishing he hadn't left the scouter on the lookout. While he had learned to sense energy from Kami, it still wasn't perfected. He may be strong, Kakarot said, but I don't think he's the one to worry about in this tournament. The rest of the preliminary fights went by uneventfully, and soon it was time to announce the fighters advancing to the finals. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer declared, our matchups will be as follows: Tao vs Tien, Kakarot vs Chi-Chi, Junior vs Krillin, Yamcha vs Chomper. We're all looking forward to the matches. Chi-Chi, Yamcha said, glancing at the tall brunette who had been announced to advance to the finals. As in the Ox King's daughter Chi-Chi. That's right, the girl said, walking up to the fighters. I was wondering when you would recognize me. Well, you've grown a lot, Yamcha said, a bit taken aback. Chi-Chi blushed. Yes, I have, she replied. And you've gotten more handsome too. It was Yamcha's turn to blush. He remembered when they had been searching for the Dragon Balls. Chi-Chi had had a crush on him, but she had only been a kid then. This definitely wasn't a kid standing before him today. You're welcome to join us and watch the fights, he said. While you're not fighting, that is. I'd like that, Chi-Chi said with a smile. Kakarot turned from the reunion and stared at the mysterious fighter now known as Chomper. He's strong, Tien said, staring at the fighter as well. Yes, he is, Kakarot agreed. Any idea who he is? Tien asked, curiosity evident in his voice. Not really, Kakarot said, but he isn't friendly, and I think I know why he's here. Why's that? The Triclops asked. He's here for me, Kakarot said, his eyes narrowing with determination. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed through the arena. Today, we have an exciting match for you. In one corner, we have the brother of Master Shen of the Crane School, Mercenary Tao. Facing off against Tao is a former student of the Crane Hermit, Tien. There seems to be some rivalry between these two. Which one will come out the winner today? The crowd buzzed with anticipation as Tao dusted off his clothes, preparing for the fight. His mechanical parts gleamed under the arena lights, a testament to the miracle work of Dr. Gerp. Tao had been one of the most feared assassins, but his previous encounter with Kakarot had left him broken. However, thanks to Dr. Gerp, he had been rebuilt, more powerful than ever, and now he sought revenge. Ready? Fight! The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Tao wasted no time, launching himself at Tien with a barrage of kicks and punches. Tien, focused and calm, blocked the attacks with precision, barely moving from his spot. With a swift backhand, Tien aimed for Tao's head, but Tao blocked it just in time. Tien didn't let up. He drove his knee into Tao's stomach, causing the mercenary to double over in pain. Before Tao could catch his breath, Tien brought both hands down in a powerful double-axe handle, sending Tao crashing into the ring floor with a loud thud. And Tien lands the first blow of the fight, the announcer exclaimed. Will Tao recover, or is it all over for him? As the dust settled, Tao struggled to his feet, a scowl forming on his face. You've ripped my clothes, he snarled. Now you'll pay for that. With a fierce tug, he tore off his tattered shirt, revealing his muscular torso. He took a fighting stance, eyes blazing with anger. Tien remained silent and charged at Tao, unleashing a series of rapid kicks and punches. Tao dodged and blocked as best as he could, but Tien's speed was overwhelming. Tao had underestimated him. I'm going to kill you, Tao yelled, revealing a hidden blade as his left robotic hand detached and transformed. There are no weapons allowed in the match, the announcer declared. Mercenary Tao is disqualified. Ignoring the announcer, Tao continued to slash at Tien with the blade. Tien dodged expertly, his movements fluid and controlled. I'm going to help him, Krillin said, worry in his voice. No, Kakarot said firmly. This is Tien's fight. But the match is over, Krillin argued. Tao is trying to kill him. Trying is the key word, Kakarot replied, eyes never leaving the ring. Tien can handle this. Back in the ring, Tien was still evading Tao's wild slashes. Tao swung again, but Tien's after-image vanished, and Tien appeared behind him, driving a powerful kick into Tao's side, sending him flying. Before Tao could react, Tien was in front of him, gripping the blade with one hand. With a burst of energy, Tien snapped the blade in half, disarming Tao. "Give up now," Tien said calmly. "You can't win." "That's what you think," Tao shouted, his other hand transforming into a cannon. "You won't survive the Super Dodon Wave." "We'll see," Tien replied, bracing himself. "Super Dodon Wave," Tao yelled, firing a massive blast at Tien. "Dodon Wave," Tien countered, fearing his own beam. The two beams collided, pushing against each other with immense force. Slowly but surely, Tien's beam began to overpower Tao's. The combined energy surged back towards Tao, engulfing him in a huge explosion. Tien didn't wait for the smoke to clear, he charged in, delivering blow after powerful blow to Tao. When the smoke finally dissipated, Tao lay unconscious at Tien's feet. Tien picked up the defeated warrior and carried him over to where Crane Hermit stood in the stands. Handing Tao over, Tien said, "I don't want to see either of you ever again. You'll pay for this." Shen spat as he took off, carrying Tao away. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. "Our last match ended rather dramatically, but thanks to Tien's skills, the situation was defused. Now, we present the returning champion, Kakarot, facing off against the newcomer, Chi-Chi." Kakarot took a calm fighting stance across from Chi-Chi. He wasn't worried about this match. He knew that the girl couldn't match him in combat. Still, he wanted to let her down gently, without being too rough. "You may begin," the announcer declared. Chi-Chi charged at Kakarot, throwing punches with all her might. Kakarot effortlessly dodged each blow, moving his head from side to side. He almost felt sorry for her. She was so determined to prove herself, but the gap in their abilities was too wide. In the crowd, Chomper observed Kakarot with a keen eye. His instincts had paid off. Kakarot was definitely the Sen he had been searching for. The tail wrapped around Kakarot's waist was a clear sign, along with his Saiyan name. Despite being on the run from Lord Frieza, this Kakarot wasn't hiding his identity well, at least not here on this remote planet. Chomper pulled out a scouter and fixed it to his eye. "Let's see how strong this Sen actually is," he muttered. The scouter read 200. "This will be easier than I thought," he chuckled. The bounty on Sens was as good as his. This little tournament made it almost too easy. All he had to do was knock Kakarot out and deliver him to Lord Frieza. Back in the ring, Chi-Chi continued her relentless assault, but Kakarot dodged each punch and kick with ease, not even breaking a sweat. Finally, Chi-Chi stopped, panting heavily. "How can I not hit you?" she gasped. "It's simple," Kakarot said with a smile. "I'm much faster than you." He then vanished from her sight and reappeared behind her, gently grabbing her from behind. Moving quickly, he dashed to the edge of the ring and let her go, allowing her to land softly on the grass. "Well, ladies and gentlemen," the announcer boomed, "Chi-Chi has been thrown out of the ring by Kakarot. Let's give her a round of applause for having the courage to go up against the two-time champion of the world." The crowd erupted in cheers, applauding Chi-Chi's bravery. A short while later, the announcer's voice rang out again. "Are you ready for the next fight?" On one side of the ring, we have the accomplished fighter Krillin. Facing off against Krillin is the newcomer Junior. Both have shown themselves to be incredible fighters in the preliminary rounds. Kakarot watched intently as Piccolo, the spawn of the Demon King, faced off against his friend Krillin. He believed Krillin could hold his own, but he knew Piccolo might have some surprises up his sleeve. Likewise, he was curious to see what new techniques Krillin might have developed over the past few years. "Ready? Fight!" the announcer declared. Krillin wasted no time, charging at Junior with a rapid flurry of kicks and punches. The Green Warrior blocked each attack with ease, countering with punches of his own, which Krillin expertly deflected. After a few intense seconds, the two fighters separated, each assessing the other. "Not bad," Krillin said, grinning. "This will be a good fight, but I think it's time I go all out." "Fine," Junior replied, smirking. "I won't hold back either. Hope you're ready for this." The fighters clashed again, their movements a blur. Krillin vanished from sight, leaving Junior's fist to hit only an after-image. Reappearing behind Junior, Krillin drove his knee into Junior's back, sending him flying. Krillin didn't let up, shooting after Junior and landing blow after powerful blow. Junior winced, feeling the impact of Krillin's relentless assault. Gathering his strength, he shot up into the air, out of Krillin's reach. But Krillin followed, launching another series of attacks. This brief respite was all Junior needed to regain his composure and block Krillin's punches. They separated again, floating above the ring and staring each other down. Junior broke the silence, stretching his arm out to deliver a punch from 10 feet away. Krillin barely dodged the unexpected attack and charged back at Junior, closing the distance and resuming his close-quarters assault. Krillin pressed his advantage, landing a hard right cross to Junior's face, sending him reeling. Determined to end the fight, Krillin cupped his hands at his side. I'm going to end this, he declared. Me, hey. He unleashed a powerful blue energy beam at Junior. Junior raised his hands, catching the blast as it exploded against them. When the smoke cleared, his clothes were slightly tattered, but he was otherwise unhurt. The demon laughed. Is that the best you've got? He taunted. That's rich coming from a guy who's getting beat up, Krillin shot back. All right, Junior said, his tone serious. I'm through playing around. He reached up, removing his heavy cape and letting it fall to the ground with a resounding thud. He's been doing all that while wearing weights? Yamcha said in disbelief. It appears so, Kakarot commented. It's a good way to train. After all, something's bothering me about Junior, Tien said, joining the conversation. He looks like he might be one of Piccolo's minions. He's not a minion, Kakarot said. He's the reincarnation of King Piccolo himself. What? Tien and Yamcha exclaimed in unison. From what I was told, Kakarot explained, when I defeated King Piccolo, he put all his energy into transferring his essence into an egg. That egg hatched and became Junior. So we have to stop him, Tien said. There's a problem with that, Kakarot replied. If Junior is destroyed, then Kami will be destroyed as well. Then what do we do? Yamcha asked, concerned. Well, Kakarot said, Piccolo is here for a reason. He sees me as a threat and wants to eliminate me before he can rule the world. Once he realizes he can't win, hopefully, he'll give up on his world domination plans. Besides, it's not Piccolo I'm really worried about. You're not worried about Piccolo? Yamcha said in disbelief. Not really, Kakarot replied. I can beat him easily if he makes it to the finals. That's right. He'll have to face me before that, Yamcha boasted confidently. No, Kakarot corrected, shaking his head. While you might stand a chance against Piccolo, I don't think you'll make it that far. Chomper is incredibly strong. Back in the ring, Junior charged at Krillin with renewed speed and strength. Before reaching him, Junior extended his arm, stretching it to grab Krillin from 10 feet away. He pulled hard, slamming Krillin's face into his knee. Krillin staggered from the blow but quickly recovered, sending a punch into Junior's abdomen. Junior blocked the punch, catching Krillin's fist with his large green hand. Krillin countered with a swift kick to Junior's stomach, doubling the Green Warrior over. Before Junior could recover, Krillin drove an elbow into Junior's neck, sending him crashing into the ring. Junior shot up from where he landed, launching a powerful kick to Krillin's face and sending him flying across the ring. Gathering energy, Junior fired a beam after the airborne Krillin, causing an explosion in midair. Krillin emerged from the dust cloud, still flying out of control, before hitting the wall and sliding down into the grass outside the ring. It appears that Junior is the winner, the announcer declared. He will move on to the next round. Next up, we have Yamcha and Chomper. Can we have both contestants report to the ring? Kakarot grabbed Yamcha by the shoulder. Be careful, he told his friend. Sure, Yamcha said with a half grin. I can handle myself. A few minutes later, Yamcha stood across from Chomper as the next match was about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer said, in one corner we have Yamcha, a seasoned fighter, and in the other, we have Chomper, a newcomer. Which one of these fighters will come out the winner? Chomper stared at Yamcha. Show me what you've got, he said. I'll try not to hurt you too badly. You talk pretty big, Yamcha replied, taking a fighting stance. Well, when you can back it up, you're allowed to talk big, Chomper retorted. You may begin, the announcer said. Yamcha charged at Chomper, unleashing a flurry of kicks and punches. I'll show you a thing or two, he declared. I'm sure you will, Chomper said, dodging every one of Yamcha's attacks effortlessly. Now, show me what you've really got. Junior grimaced as he watched the two fighters, or more accurately, as he saw Chomper playing with Yamcha. I'll have to watch that one, he thought. He may be a threat. A few minutes later, Yamcha was panting from exertion. How come I can't hit you? He gasped. You're weak, Chomper answered honestly. It seems to be a common trait with your species. I'll show you weak, Yamcha declared. He turned his hand palm up and concentrated. In seconds, a small ball of energy formed, floating above his hand. With a determined look, Yamcha hurled the ball at Chomper. The energy attack tracked almost perfectly, but Chomper moved so fast that it zipped past him, heading straight for the crowd. Yamcha quickly used 2 fingers to direct the attack, causing it to change course midair and head back towards Chomper. This time, the warrior didn't move. Instead, he backhanded the attack, sending it flying back at Yamcha at blinding speed. The attack hit Yamcha squarely, sending him crashing hard into the ring. Bruised and battered from his own attack, Yamcha struggled to his feet. Chomper laughed. Are you done yet, weakling? I'll show you weak, Yamcha repeated, charging at Chomper again. But this time, Chomper was done playing. With a single backhand, he sent Yamcha flying into the wall, where he hit hard and slid down to the grass, unconscious. Well, the announcer said, it appears that Chomper has defeated Yamcha in an astonishing match. He will face off against Junior in the semi-finals after Kakarot faces off against Tien. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer continued, we have the rematch of the century for you today. Kakarot and Tien went toe-to-toe in the finals of the last tournament, and now we have them facing off against each other again today. Which one of these incredible fighters will be victorious? Tien faced Kakarot in the ring. Are you ready for this? He asked the Saiyan. Ready when you are, Kakarot replied with a confident smile. Chomper watched the fight in anticipation. He hit his scouter. The Saiyan is at 200 and his opponent is at 400, he thought. Maybe this Tien would knock out his prize for him, and he wouldn't even have to fight the Saiyan after all. As long as he brought a Saiyan back alive, the bounty was the same. Chomper laughed to himself. It didn't really matter whether Tien knocked out the Saiyan for him or if he had to do it himself. It's not like it would be a challenge anyway. The crocodile-like fighter laughed and went to get a refreshment. He hardly needed to watch this fight after all. He already knew who would win. The little Saiyan didn't stand a chance. You may begin, the announcer said. With those words, Tien shot at Kakarot, throwing a flurry of kicks and punches at the young Saiyan, testing his defenses. To his surprise, Kakarot moved out of the way of them all with the same ease he had shown when fighting Chi-Chi. How is he so fast? Tien thought. He had worked so hard over the past 3 years to improve his speed, hoping to gain an advantage over Kakarot, but it seemed it had all been in vain. Tien redoubled his efforts, sending his blows with more ferocity than before, but he couldn't lay a finger on the young Saiyan. Is that all you've got? Kakarot said, dodging a fist and jumping over a kick, flipping easily out of Tien's reach. Tien considered his options for a moment. He could use the multiform technique, but he had tried that in the last tournament, and Kakarot had easily countered it, showing that it weakened him by dividing his power among the clones. Tien dismissed that idea instantly. It hadn't worked before, and it certainly wouldn't work now. He briefly considered using the tri-beam cannon, but he doubted he could hit Kakarot with it given the boy's newfound speed. In fact, he couldn't think of anything that would be effective against Kakarot, but he had to try something. Tien phased out of sight, leaving only an after-image behind, moving with all the speed he could muster, hoping to avoid detection by the younger fighter. The Triclops reappeared behind Kakarot with a kick aimed right at the Saiyan's head, but his attack hit only air. Nice try, Kakarot said from behind Tien. But I grow tired of this. The young Saiyan shot a fist out just as Tien began to turn with an attack of his own. The punch landed squarely in Tien's stomach, doubling him over and sending him to his knees before he collapsed to the ground. It appears that Kakarot has knocked Tien out with a single punch, the announcer said. We'll start the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Kakarot is the winner. Chomper returned with a corn dog and a drink just in time to see the young Saiyan walking down from the ring while his opponent lay unconscious. What? How'd he win that fight? It should have been a slaughter for his opponent. Across the stadium, Junior watched the fight as well. He wasn't surprised by the outcome but by the quickness of his rival. The boy had moved faster than even he could follow at times. He seriously doubted that he could even touch the young man in combat. How had he gotten so strong? After King Piccolo had been defeated, Junior had trained almost non-stop to surpass Kakarot. He wanted revenge and to rule the planet, but he was starting to have doubts about whether that would actually happen. He might have to bide his time and redouble his efforts to get stronger than the boy. Kakarot sat in the stands next to his future wife, Chi-Chi, and relaxed as he waited for the next fight. He was interested to see what both Chomper and Junior could do, but he figured he could watch from here just as well as anywhere. Bulma squeezed his hand beside him and smiled. His heart melted at seeing her smile after 3 years of not seeing her. He had thought it would be awkward, but they had reconnected almost instantly. So, who do you think is going to win this one? Bulma asked, interrupting his pleasant thoughts and putting his mind back on the fight that was about to start. Chomper is by far more powerful, Kakarot replied. I don't think Junior stands a chance. Piccolo? Roshi asked from behind him. Junior is the reincarnation of King Piccolo, Kakarot explained. He's here for revenge and wants to rule the planet. Not again, Roshi groaned. We have to stop him. No, Kakarot said, shaking his head. He wants to test the waters first. He won't try anything unless he's sure he's the strongest. No need to worry then, right? Bulma said, squeezing one of Kakarot's biceps. You can beat him, can't you? I won't have to, Kakarot replied, finally answering her first question. Chomper won't let him get to the finals. Before Kakarot could elaborate, the announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last fight of the semi-finals, we have Junior versus Chomper. One of these amazing fighters will go on to face Kakarot for the title in the finals. Junior took a defensive stance as he faced off against Chomper. He could tell this fighter was no one to trifle with and wanted to be on his guard. "Ready, begin," the announcer declared. Junior shot at Chomper, forming a ball of energy in each hand. As he drew near, he launched one and then the other at the crocodile-like fighter at point-blank range. The attacks flew true and exploded on contact. When the dust settled, Chomper stood unharmed, laughing. "Is that all you've got?" The crocodile shot at Junior so fast that the demon couldn't even follow his movements. In an instant, Chomper appeared in front of Junior, his snout inches from the demon's face. "What makes you think you can take me on?" he sneered. Junior swung a fist at his opponent, but Chomper caught it easily. The crocodile squeezed, causing a crunching sound as Junior's knuckles cracked. Chomper shoved his opponent to the ground and laughed. "You're pathetic," Junior fumed. He wanted so badly to teach this guy a lesson, but he couldn't touch him. His energy blast, which would have vaporized most opponents, had no effect. Before he could react, Chomper's elbow was in his face, sending him flying into the wall where he landed with a thud and slid into the grass. "Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen," the announcer said. "Chomper is the winner by ringing out. He will face off against Kakarot in the finals." In the stands, Kakarot pulled his undershirt over his head and dropped it on the ground with a thud. Soon his boots and wristbands followed. "This weighs a ton," Bulma said, trying to lift the shirt and struggling with its weight. "Yeah," Kakarot said with a smile. "It was good for training, but I have a feeling I'm going to need to be at my best for the next fight." That's it for this episode, guys. If you've watched to the end, then that may be an indication that you enjoy the episode, so please drop a like so the video could reach more people. See you in the next episode. Take care.